Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday edition of Ask Ira Job Seekers Q&A. It is a special show today. I have a guest coming on. Good morning, Ruth. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Idel. Is that how you say that, Idel? Good morning, everybody. I have a special guest coming on today. It is her name is Hope White. She specializes in placing people inside U.S. government roles, and so she is not here yet. We'll bring her on as soon as she makes it in. In the meantime, as you guys are doing, drop a hello. It's always a good idea on this show to tell us where you're from, what type of work you're looking at, because we get recruiters and employers from all around the world who watch the show. I actually simulcast this on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and I get people who watch from each platform. But then beyond that, I also put this on my website, projecthelpyougrow.com, where it lives permanently, and people can watch those after the live is over. I typically will add them 3 shows at a time because of the format. I have 3 shows on one level, so I like to keep things nice and clean. So they're always a little bit behind, but I think today I'll be putting a new stack, and so this show and a few others will be there. So good morning. As you can see, we have a lot of people. We have 30 people watching right now just on LinkedIn alone. So again, tell us where you're from. Tell us what kind of work you're doing. And if you have a job seeker question, feel free to put that in the questions. That's what the show is all about. The show is never scripted, meaning that we just, and good morning, Sally. See, she's watching this from Facebook. We just answer the questions as they come in. Now, we do have, like today, we're going to focus, when my guest arrives, we're going to focus on government questions, government jobs specifically, but we'll still take any of your questions. So if you want to talk about, oh, perfect. See, this is exactly how you do it. Zishan is from Pakistan looking for software project management. I think, Zishan, have you checked Project Help You Grow? I'm going to pull it up and look real quick. I think I just put one of these up on Project Help You Grow last week from Pakistan. So go ahead and check Project Help You Grow for jobs. It's not the only thing you can do on Project Help You Grow. I said it's probably not even the most valuable thing that you can do on Project Help You Grow. I think the blog pretty much is the most special part of Project Help You Grow, because it gives you all kinds of advice. You know, how to prepare for interviews, how to write your resume, how to do your research, how to set up your schedule, how to combat depression if you're, starting to get, mentally drained from the rigors of a prolonged job search. There's all kinds of stuff on there, and it is 100% free. You do not need any. Oh no, I'm sorry. The one that I was looking for here, I'm just going to pull it up. The one I was thinking of was a sales engineer position, not a software development. So probably not what you were looking for, but I'm just going to pull it up just so that people can see. So this is the one I was thinking of right here. It is executive sales engineer for Siemens in Pakistan. I don't get a ton of jobs in Pakistan, so that one stood out to me because of the location. But anyways, where I'm at, I'm just at, if you look at the top of my screen, or top of your screen there, welcome to Project Help You Grow, I'm just there. And then you come to jobs, search jobs. If you're a recruiter or an employer and you want to post a job, you can post a job too. So you can do either. It's all free. Okay, so that's Project Help You Grow. But like I said, I have the blog on there. You can read all kinds of advice on anything job search related. And then I have the Ask Ira. That's this show right here. I'll just click over to it. I think I have 15 episodes on there right now. And then, like I said, the one from today and the 2 prior will go on, and then there'll be 18. But, it's just, the show is all it is, so there's the show from previous weeks. You can click on any of them you want and watch. There's different questions in each show, but they're, however people ask the questions is whatever we talk about on the show. So it's kind of cool. that way. So if you have never been to Project Help You Grow and you've missed one of these episodes, that's one of the things that you can do. And again, there's no commercials or anything like that. It's completely free. So that's what people like about it. All right. So good morning, Katata. I think that's how you say that. And good morning, Eric. It's actually evening for you. Good evening from India. What kind of role are you looking for there, Eric, and where? Alpha Philip, greetings from Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles too, Dr. Philip. Good morning. I'm actually from the Inland Empire. I'm assuming you know where that's at. A lot of people, outside of the LA area have no idea, but I live for everybody that's watching that isn't familiar with Los Angeles. It's huge. I live east inland. It's called the Inland Empire, but I live like halfway from LA to Palm Springs is where I live. Basically, it's the easiest way to say it. Ruth, good morning. Where in Texas? I used to live there in New Braunfels. I used to work in Austin and San Antonio from my home in New Braunfels. Good morning, Kamal from Morocco. What kind of job search assistance are you looking for? Do you want help with resume, with job listings, looking for, working remotely, working abroad, all kinds of different things? Hope is joining me right now, which is awesome. She's in the green room, and she's shaking her hands in victory. This is what happens when we I want to say more experienced folks
Mhm.
have a technological victory. We raise our hands in celebration, and I won't let them know that there was someone with less experience who was there helping. But good morning, Hope.
Good morning.
So I just want to give a quick shout out to Vets to Industry because in fact, they have an event later today.
Mhm.
But I was on their event 3 weeks ago. I know it was 3 weeks ago only because they do it every 3 weeks. It's for veterans to help them transition into civilian workforce. And you were the guest speaker. You were the keynote speaker, however people want to phrase that. But
Mhm.
you knocked my socks off, Hope. I was so impressed with how thorough your information was and how well you described it. As you can attest, I said, "Hey, I want to have you on my show." So there's more people to help, obviously, and you're going to be. Are you going back today? There's another one today. I don't know if you're
Yes.
today.
Yes, I'll be there.
I'm going to be there too. I won't be able to be fully engaged because I actually have some projects I have to work on. But what you
Mhm.
were talking about was helping people land jobs in government positions, which is a different strategy,
Yes.
philosophy, process. I mean, this completely different than what it is to get a private sector job, right? So if I want to go work for like IBM or Coke or
Mhm.
Google or, Bowman Digital Media, a small company like mine, my resume is going to be different. My interview is going to be different. What I'm going to, study, all those things, the terminology, everything is pretty much different. Now it's funny
Mhm.
because, and you don't know this yet, my mom and my dad both work for the government. Well, my dad is retired now, but my mom is a court clerk in Utah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I don't know. I didn't know all the things that you were saying. My mom started 20 years ago, and my dad started like 35 years ago, right? So it's been a long time. But I don't
Mhm.
know if it's always been that way. But I mean, if they had asked me for advice, I wouldn't have had any idea what to tell them. Like now I do
Yeah.
because I run Project Help You Grow. I don't know if you know about Project Help You Grow, but it's a
Mhm.
nonprofit philanthropy organization to help people find jobs for free. But I specialize in the private sector stuff. So there's a lot of things today that I'm just going to go like, hope you tell us because I don't know. I'm not going to be much help for you, but I can
Well,
tell you the opposite side. Like if you're not sure how it works on the private side, I could tell you on the private sector how all this stuff works. So it'll be kind of fun. But I want to get into it. So we have a bunch of people watching. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. And then this
mhm.
is going to be housed, and I will send you the link to it. It'll be housed permanently on Ask Ira Job Seeker Q&As tab of Project Help You Grow. So if you want to
Okay.
send to other people, you'll be able to. But let's just get into it. So if you don't mind, maybe like 2 minutes introduction by way of introduction, who you are and what you do.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll give people time to
Mhm.
formulate some questions and we'll go from there.
Well, it's so funny because I usually don't talk about myself at all. I say, I'm
I
Hope.
know. I
Nice to
think
meet you all. Now go to LinkedIn and look at my profile. That's what I usually say because I just get into it because I
But you
love
know
it.
what? While you're
But
doing that, I'm gonna copy your LinkedIn profile and I'll tag it in the post so people can connect with you or follow you or
oh
whatever you
yeah.
prefer. But I'll get that going right now.
Okay, so I basically have had this really uh I never thought myself to be a federal employee, actually the opposite. So I went from a lot of corporate jobs to the military, from the military into very corporate jobs as a corporate librarian. I was an HR specialist in the military, in the Army. And then I, uh, through just a series of events, I went to a job interview and got the job as a library clerk while I was in college, and just kind of stayed there. And they taught me everything they knew about managing and running a corporate library. And then I went off and got a better job at KPMG, which is a big four accounting firm. So I managed all the libraries in the Southeast, Latin American, Caribbean. More than anything, I did a lot of research and training, which is what I love to do. And then I came home for a few years with my kids. And then I started contracting at CDC here in Atlanta. And the contracts led to me being in contact with a lot of veterans in the agency that unfortunately um, made me go, excuse me, what? Because I had a command sergeant major. How do you retire as a command sergeant major and then become a GS7 in the federal government? Those two things don't go together.
Right.
And so then it really started me looking at the process and how we can get him out of that, really, which led to a whole bunch of questions to the point that CDC gave me my own person that I was just supposed to call him. And any questions I had, only him, don't bother them ever again in the HR center. And so that was perfectly fine because he was excellent and knew exactly what to tell me and where to show me on OPM because I'm more of a show me the truth, don't tell me the truth kind of person. And I think that's one of the issues that we have in our community, in the military communities, that we share a lot of information, but unfortunately, a lot of the information just pertains to you. It has nothing to do with me and my conditions.
Right.
And
Right.
so he taught me a lot of things and he answered all my questions and some things I emailed OPM for, but I spent a lot of time on the opm.gov website. And then I spent a lot of time on USA Jobs, which has changed. So like your parents from 20 years ago, I mean, they didn't even have to deal with USA Jobs.
Right.
But when they went through their revamp, I think this is the best version of USA Jobs that they've ever had. And so I started meeting people in conference rooms and in bakeries and different places to help them do two things: either get into the federal government or get a promotion, or help with their VA claims. And so it just kept going and going and going. And then finally, I said I need a organized way to do this because of the job that I was in. And so that's why I said, okay, now's the time to just go ahead and put the business together so I can write some things off, which makes my husband happy. Because I've made a total of $135 in since 2005.
My wife and I were having this exact conversation on the way home from church the other day. She's like, when we write stuff, because she didn't understand. Okay, so there's good things and bad things about writing stuff off, right? So the good thing about writing stuff off is then you're not paying as much tax.
Mm-hmm.
But the bad part about write-offs is it makes it look like you didn't make any money.
Well,
So
I didn't.
your ego takes a huge hit. Like, man, what am I? I'm doing this for practice because I'm not making any money. But it really does help. It's about. This is one thing I love about being self-employed, right? I'm a business owner, so I get my money first, and then the tax man gets it second. You know what I mean? And in the old days with the job, like they took the taxes out and got to play with it until my refund. So that's one of the advantages. But it is funny because my wife owns a business too, so we're both self-employed, and we were talking about. But write-offs are not free money. Like
No.
she's like, because she didn't quite understand it, and she had somebody else who is really confused. And so maybe we could talk about this for a second. But when you write something off, you're still paying for it.
Well,
Like
I already paid for it. Here it all is.
you had to take the money out of your account and spend it, and then you get to write it off, which means whatever the tax burden was, that's the part that
Mhm.
becomes quote unquote free for you. So
Mhm.
if your
Mhm.
tax liability is 37%, then that means you still paid 63%, if people can follow the math there, right? You
Oh,
know what I mean?
absolutely.
So
So that's why I mean, we've been married for 23 years. So this
yeah,
guy knows me. He
yeah.
knows what makes me
My
happy.
wife and I are
So
20, by the way. So what are the odds that two people on a social media show have both been married 20 plus years? That's
oh, and veterans.
well, I'm not a veteran.
You're
I'm a
not a veteran?
I am not. Everybody thinks I am because of the haircut. So
What?
let me rip that off. So my dad, in fact, every male in my family had served until me. I
Mhm.
was a child of age in the 90s, right? Like I should have
Gotcha.
gone in,
Mhm.
and we were going into the Yugoslavia, that thing with Clinton. My dad's like, you know what? I don't want you to go. I don't want you to
Mhm.
serve there. And I'm like, are you sure, Dad? Because like we have a family legacy of service. And he's like,
Mhm.
no, I really don't want you to go. He was mistreated when he came back from Vietnam.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
so he
Mhm.
thought, well, you're gonna go there, you're gonna put your life in harm's way for what? Because we didn't quite understand what was going on with that
Mhm.
situation. And then you're gonna be spit on when you come back. And he was like,
Right.
I just don't want you to deal with that. And I was like, all right.
Rambo.
Yeah. So I listened to my dad, and so I didn't
Uh-huh.
join. But anyways, I love the military because like my
Mhm.
grandfather, my uncles, my dad, I have cousins who are serving right now in country in Afghanistan, in fact.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Well, that says something about you as a person. I don't feel like I had a legacy. My dad was in the National Guard in New York State, and I would go with him to drill, even though that was illegal and I wasn't supposed to be there. But
right.
I loved being with my dad. I'm daddy's girl, and I loved going and being with the guys. And I mean, my dad made history. He was the first African American in that unit,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
he was that way for unfortunately about 12 years. Took
Ooh,
about 12 years for someone else to come
someone else.
in.
Sorry.
And
Yeah.
so it was the one place. Buffalo's a very segregated place.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the few places that I mean, outside of my family, because we were all mixed up, but it was the one place that I had interaction with other, and because we all lived separately, and
Yeah.
so it was fabulous. I never even knew. I mean, it was fabulous. I had a great time. I was treated like their daughter. It was wonderful,
So I'm the
and
opposite of you. I mean, completely
mhm,
because you're
mhm,
military. I'm not. I have black family members and I have Mexican family members.
mhm.
We're like a band of mutts.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for 2 years, I lived with my African American cousin. So
hmm,
we shared the same room. We were
hmm,
roommates. I never grew up understanding the whole race thing
hmm.
from the perspective of most people are like, you only hang out with people in your whatever your
Right.
thing is because we were mixed. My cousin to this day, we're like brothers. We're as close. My cousin and I are as close as my brother and I are.
Hmm.
I lived with my brother for a while as a kid, and I lived with my cousin for a while as a kid. I shared a room with both. So, anyways, just interesting. But the
But
West
yeah, but we
is
were
more.
all mixed up too. That's why it was such a terrible thing to leave our community and leave my house where we're all mixed up, um, and then go and experience negative things
Yeah, yeah,
because it was a surprise. It wasn't like someone said, "Well, this is how they are," or it wasn't like that at all.
right, right.
It was, you're a kid, you're growing up all mixed up. I mean, well, I think one of the reasons why my dad was able to be there that long is because, well, he could pass. I look more like my mom. Well, I look exactly like my mother, but yeah, that was one of the things. But I love the military, and I thought, okay, I love everything about this. I love the discipline of it.
Yeah.
I loved back then. They didn't have as many schools that they would send people to because they just didn't have the budget, and so they did these yellow correspondence manuals. And so it was my job to read the manual to the team. They would be cleaning weapons or whatever, and I would be reading the questions and the information to them, and then they would all put their little pieces of paper together, and I would put them in the envelopes and mail them back. Because most of them were functional illiterates. They
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of, as they said, schooling. And so I always had this thing if I find, well, Hope, do you think you can find? I spent a lot of time at the library, so I would find information for them about different things. It was just part of my life. And so I always knew I would go into the military. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
And so I was at Georgia State. I moved from Buffalo to Metro Atlanta, and I was going to Georgia State, and I said, well, this is a good time. I'm going to take some time out from school. I don't know what I want to do, if I want to go in the reserves or full time. So
So
I
what
actually started with a reserve unit. Mhm.
what brought you from Buffalo down to Atlanta? Because that seems like a like two different worlds. You know what I mean?
It was I was 16, and it was education.
Okay. For
It
school.
was it was going to Georgia State University, and
You
to
started college at 16?
well, I was one of those weird people who wanted to do well, and
You were one of those
um,
smart kids who got ahead.
well, I feel like I got ahead because I had my some of my siblings had disabilities. We didn't know what they were then, but I read a lot of books to them the night before class.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I was so smart as much as I was exposed to the information long before everyone else because they were much older than I
I
was.
gotcha. Yeah, because you're
And
helping
so
studies, so you already got it. I get it.
yeah, and
I have a
so
lot in
I
common. You and I have a lot in common.
well that's what I find with most people. The more you talk, the more you go, oh, okay, yeah. You
But
see the parallels.
I find it true in what we do. The people that are out there
Mhm,
helping people, you know, with
mhm.
the job search, we tend to have it. We don't look alike necessarily, but we think alike. I think
Well, I think underneath we're all the same. We all want good things for our children.
I agree with
We
that.
are, and so we do what we have to do, and we push ourselves and go beyond ourselves just to
Yep.
make that happen for them. I was on a call last night, and that's all I kept saying because I was on with military spouses. And the bottom line is, most of the stuff that we do, what drives us out of our little cubby hole, is to do the best we can for people, but also we have those children that motivate us. I have two motivators in my house. Every time I see them, and when they eat something, and they never ask for anything. My kids are just so gracious that way, but I want everything for them, so then I do everything I can to help other people, because once you stabilize the income in a home, that usually stabilizes the home. And so all the odd jobs here and there, or being laid off, or the COVID situation, well, guess where that doesn't happen? The federal government.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just gave us a laptop and sent us home.
The government's always hiring. My mom. It's funny. So my mom she's a court clerk. That's what she's been doing 20 years. So she works. It's the state level. She works out of Provo, Utah, most of the time, full time, and then she works out of a courthouse in Nephi, which is 35 miles south, basically. Um, Normally, a couple days a week, like 1 day a week, 2 days a week at the most.
Mhm.
So right now, what they have her doing is they have her working out of her home 2 days a week out of Nephi, the lower court, lower just geographically, you know.
Mhm.
So it's closer to her house. So she's doing that 2 days a week, and then she's working out of Provo 1 day a week. But she actually has to be there because she has physical documents, the dockets and stuff that she has to scan, and she deals in the mental health arena.
Oh.
So she
Mhm.
has to scan doctors' orders and things like that for patients. So
Mhm.
she has to physically touch stuff because without the stamps and the signatures from the judges and the doctors,
Yeah.
it's not legal or official until it's all stamped. So she's doing that. But um, where was I going with that? Oh, like me, I haven't left my house for work since May.
Well.
The last time I left my house
Hmm.
for a job was May. Now I'm actually doing a video shoot down in San Diego next Thursday,
Mhm.
so I have to, go down there to do that. But most of the things, like
Well, I
you're saying,
mean, I work for a living,
you get a laptop and you go to your desk and you just work, and that's the way a
no.
lot of people have
Well,
been.
I've had several jobs in the federal. Well, of course, I had the corporate thing, the military thing, but I would say in contracting in the federal government, it's a different world. I mean, you make way more money. The benefits are awful, usually, unless you're with like Lockheed Martin or something.
Right.
Um, and so I would say my whole federal experience is I've had some telework experience in there. They've allowed me, okay, Hope, you're a contractor, but we know you're gonna do more than what we asked. So then they let me work from home. But in my last few federal jobs, I had no telework options. It was not even a possibility,
Yeah.
because the first one was because of the agency I was with in the job I was doing, and then the second one was at the VA, and that was my last job right before I went back to my same agency that I came from. And
Yeah.
so I was an HR specialist, and I was doing classification there. And so when everything started with COVID, it they couldn't make decisions as to should we go home or not. And I personally felt like I should. And so then I exercised my right and my own intelligence and made the decision and got the approval from my supervisor to just leave. And that very next day is when they sent everybody home.
There you go.
And that was
What helped
because,
to impact that decision then?
oh, I have to make the decision. I have to take care of the people in my household. So
Yeah.
I don't expect the leadership there to understand that because they were already at home.
Right.
I didn't want to bring my husband's. He's on that list of he would be compromised. So I could never even take that risk with him because I'm not trying to date anymore ever again. I'm trying to keep this one alive for a long time.
Right.
So because it's just easy.
Right. I don't think my wife wants to break in a new husband at this point either. I think
No,
the
I love it. I love it. We understand each other. Well, we've had some time to work it all out.
right.
So I didn't want to get sick and bring it home. I have two kids. I didn't want to bring it home to them. And so I had to make the decision that, the job and the employment was not, and what I was doing was not more important than them. And
Yeah.
so a lot of things come down to asking myself, who do I love the most? So then I make it that way in my mind so that I'll just make the right decision. And so so that's what I was doing at the VA before July. And then I went back to my original agency. But I learned how to classify um, in the military, 1990. What year was that? 1992. And so because I was an HR specialist, and that's really the technique that I show people to use in order to qualify for federal jobs. So the way I do it is very different from the way you would see it anywhere. But I know that it works because I've been doing it a long time. And I've been able to help federal employees get their promotions. I've helped federal employees move to different job series. And then I've helped a lot of people get into the federal government. And I'm not one to like have a list. I just ask one thing, just tell me once you get it. And
Yeah.
then that's it. Because once I show you the method and the strategy, you use it for the rest of your career.
Right. So
Mhm.
let's get into this. We have a couple people who are in the comment sections, and I'll bring them up. So we've got Ruth S. She is from Texas. She
Okay.
has an HR degree, 35 years of experience is what I'm presuming she means by this. Ruth, you can
Hmm.
correct me if I misunderstood that part of it, but I think that's what that means. So 35 years of experience. She wants criminal investigation, some type of criminal investigation role. I,
Okay. So
she has
those
not
are
she has not stipulated any other qualifications, so we can ask her anything we like if we need. But she is in Texas now. I have already put on the comment board for everybody USA Jobs. If you're not familiar with that, I'm going to bring it back up. It's right here, so you guys can click on that link. This is on LinkedIn in the LinkedIn comments. You guys can click on that to go there because my presumption is hope that you're going to be talking about this site more than any.
I am.
So
I
I
Go
have it
ahead.
up. I have it up already. So if you tell me
Hmm.
what to do or where to go, I will. I will.
Okay. So the first thing with Ruth is you've chosen two jobs that are very different, and so then unfortunately, unless you've been doing personnel security, usually it's hard to transfer over into something that's very specific like criminal research.
Right.
And so then the question is, are you going back to school for that? What are you doing to reach that goal?
Yeah. And,
Because
and
that's
that's the same. And that's the same in the private sector too, by the way. So
right.
you'll address both birds with one stone here. There now, you tell me if this is different, Hope, in the government world, but in the private sector world, there are really three pillars to
Mhm.
landing a job. And most people know about two, but I'm going to say the third. And this, I don't know if it makes a difference in the government or not, but it might.
Mhm.
The first one is education. You already talked about it. I don't know if you went back to school for criminal whatever, but if you didn't, you're going to have a problem. Same in the civilian world. If you don't have the education, that's a problem, especially in a market like this where there are a lot of, unemployment has been coming down. The rate has been coming down, but it's still 6.8%, which I don't know if you guys understand, but that's double what it was before COVID hit. We were in the threes. It was oscillating back and forth between 3.3 and 3.7%. Okay. So right now we're at 6.8. It's double what it was pre-COVID. Not nearly as bad as the 14.5% that it got to when it spiked or peaked, but still there's twice as many people on the job market as were pre-COVID. So education is important. If it says bachelor's degree, if it says master's degree, if it says any type of special certificates or whatever it says, high school diploma, it means it, because they're going to get plenty of people who will apply that have that prerequisite ticked. If you don't have that tick mark, you're in trouble. So that's one. Pillar number one is education. Pillar number two is experience. Your experience matters in civilian jobs. If you're applying for a job that we would consider or call in the civilian world a stretch job, meaning that you could do it, but you've never actually done it before, you're likely not going to get the job right now. So previous experience, have you worked in that field doing that thing before, is important. And third, the one that nobody guesses, but is probably the most critical, who you know is super important. Who's going to refer you to the job? Who's going to give you a recommendation? Who's going to write you a letter, a recommendation? Who's going to, get you around the gatekeeper, if you will, the recruiter, and speaking to the person that's hiring or the person that's making that decision. For example, as the owner of Bowman Digital Media, I get almost all of my clients come from people like, hey, somebody who does this business who needs help with their website or might need a social media manager. And they say to that person, hey, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to Ira over at Bowman Digital Media. He does a good job. I get most of my business comes that way. It's not somebody that I knew. It's somebody that somebody I know knows. And it's the referrals. It's the same thing in the job market. I'm finding 80% of people right now are finding jobs in the civilian workforce, not through a job board like Project Help You Grow or Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever. Right. They're finding it through networking and referrals. That's how people are getting hired in the civilian world. Again, these things are probably different. The percentages for sure are different in the government world, especially because they have to be more careful about playing favorites and stuff like that, right? I'm sure there's probably more rules, I'm going to guess, with the government than there are with
absolutely. So go ahead.
Who you know is, I'm assuming, still important, right? If you're getting referred by somebody that's inside that department, wouldn't that help you land the job?
So I wrote down everything that you said. There are some differences. The reason why I asked Ruth about her education and I was going to ask about experience is because, just like you said, those two jobs have different job series and different requirements for each. So it's different if she said, I've been an HR person for 35 years. We can go in and convert her outside of the federal government language into inside the federal government language and explain very carefully how she's done the tasks that are required of the person who's getting that job. Normally in the federal government, education is not as important as you think. So there's 4 kinds of jobs in the federal government. The first group that we always talk about are the professional group. Those are the ones that require a degree: doctor, lawyer, nurse, and some certifications. Then the second group is the administrative group. The third group is the tech group. They have tech in their title: med tech, radiology tech. And then the other group are the clerical and assistance teams. And so then for the most part, when we look at USA jobs, what we're talking about is the second category. That is the administrative jobs. So what Ruth is talking about is an administrative job, which means that when she goes to look at that job on USA jobs, it probably will not say that it requires a degree. Okay. So the way education helps you in the federal government is not so much the degree, it is the classes that make up the degree. The classes that make up the degree
Give you
is
experience.
what the classifiers look at and determine your qualifications for in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? So I know you guys talk about ATS all the time.
We'd love to talk about the ATS, which
Right.
is
But we don't have that conversation in the federal government anymore. There was one site that had ATS. It was called the Avenue, and it had on there what they call other agencies. And so it did have an ATS, but they are now folded into USA Jobs. And
right.
so USA Jobs has no ATS.
Yeah.
There are human beings that go through everything.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of doing your keywords.
This is what
So,
we dream about, Hope.
mhm,
In the civilian world, we dream. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. Our
mhm.
dream today is, so the reason a lot of people don't understand this, why the ATS was designed.
Oh,
It was designed for two reasons. It was designed to help streamline the application process, but also to reduce or eliminate, because I think they actually would have used the word eliminate, biases. Biases, which are important. You know, we want to take away gender bias and race bias and education bias and even economic bias, because like in the old days, like you and I know, you would take your briefcase full of your resumes that you got printed at the Kinko's or wherever from home, and we'd have it on that nice fancy linen paper. Well, not everybody
Beautiful paper. Yes.
not everybody could afford to do all that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So economics, it's funny, people don't think about that, but you know, the economics were always a part of the biases, and some were on purpose and some were subconscious even, because when you hold a nice linen piece of paper, especially if you're not used to it, if you're used to just holding 20-pound bond regular copy paper all the time, and then you pick up a elegant piece of paper, you're like, ooh. Oil on here. I mean, this thing is nice, right? So, you know, those biases, that's what the ATS was supposed to do. Now it created a whole worm. Like they made more problems, I think, than they resolved. But anyways, that's what it was supposed to be for. But the problem is because in the private sector, there's no standardization. So there are literally over 10,000 ATS software programs out there. There is no standardization. And so what one ATS program would do, like Taleo is made by Oracle. It's the #1 ATS in the world, but only like 18% of companies use it. And it's expensive, as you could probably imagine, because it's made by
the larger companies. Yeah, they use it.
So, you know, just because it does it this way doesn't mean the next one's ATS is going to do it that way. And that's what a lot of people get, you know, mis or disinformation, because sometimes it's misinformation and sometimes there's these myths out there that somebody says it and people then take it at face value, like, oh, that's the gospel truth, when it's the exact opposite of what's actually true. And then I have to like dispel this information as best as I can. But anyways, I am happy to hear there's no ATS. That is our dream, to get back to one. You enter your information here and it all is uniform. That would be
so that's one of the big myths of the federal government, that if the website you're on usajobs.gov, if you scroll down to the bottom, it's a blue banner at the bottom. It says federal hiring myths. There it is. And it says an automated application review process to include all the required areas of in a manual review by the HR specialist. That's where we are. We're at the manual review. So right up top where it says, however, some agencies, they don't do that anymore. They're all in USA Jobs. So even that's not up to date, it is still the best version of this website ever. But number 2 is what's true. A manual review by HR specialists and so when you think about, if you're taking a resume that you used outside of the federal government and pushed it into the federal government,
it ain't gonna work.
It's not going to work for a few reasons. But I want to talk about education again, because with education, you do have some benefits in that it helps you get more points. So this whole game is a point system. And if you don't understand the points and where they come from, then you're not addressing everything to get the maximum amount of points. And that's really the issue.
This is actually true, because I heard you talking about this in your presentation 3 weeks ago, and I want to just pop right here for you job seekers on the civilian side. It's exactly the same. If this comes down to points, 100%. Are you going to get the interview or not get the interview in the civilian world if they're using ATS? Comes down to points, because the ATS programs, all of them, score your resume, because that's part of what they were designed to do. They score it for keywords, for qualifications, and then they stack you in order, highest to lowest. And there's a cut line, just like I'm sure there is in the government, where they're going to interview so many people. So the cut line is a manual thing where the person who inserts the actual job into the ATS, it's the same thing. They go, okay, we're going to interview 50 people or 100 people or however many people. And they put that, they just enter that in. It's just a number that they enter. And then there's a cut line. And so the only people that will get manually reviewed, Hope, in the civilian sector are the ones who make above the cut line. If you hit below the cut line, you will never be seen by a human being in most companies, the way that they set up their workflow. There could be exceptions out there. I've heard there are, but I've not actually talked to anybody, recruiter or HR, who could confirm it. So that's just what I've heard through the grapevine. There are companies that will actually still go through every resume, but I haven't talked to anybody who does. So the ones that get reviewed manually are the ones that get these points that you're talking about. Now, I'm interested if you can help us in how those points are earned, because I'm guessing that there's probably some differences in the civilian versus the government scoring system and how you guys get those points. But I do want people to hear this for both sides of the coin, government and civilian or private, however you want to say it. Points are important. So
it's not like, I mean, even outside of, let's say that you don't have the points. I'm using myself as an example. I was out one night so many years ago using monster.com. I was actually, yeah. Did you know that Monster is this website you're looking at?
Is it really?
This is Monster, USA Jobs. That's, everyone's wondering how Monster is even surviving, because when you go out there and look, it's not a lot of jobs. It's because they have this fat contract with the with the Office of Personnel Management. That's how they're surviving. So this is a Monster website.
I haven't heard of Monster in years.
I know. I bring them up because that's the website we're looking at.
Now let me tell you what's ironic about that, right? I help people find jobs every single day via Project Help You Grow. Like, I haven't had somebody say, well, you know, this is how they do it on Monster. Like, I think I used Monster like 10 years ago to put my resume out there. Like, if I searched for Ira, I wonder if it would still remember me. But anyways.
Well, I'm going to tell you my workaround for the ATS. I saw a job. I was looking for jobs for my sister at the time. Created a resume for her, uploaded it, and was searching for her. And I said, well, let me just look if there's any library jobs out there, because I was doing the library corporate thing at that point. And so I did see 3 jobs, and I was like, wow, okay. The first one, I was like, I don't want to work for them. The next one, I was like, no, I don't want to do that, because that doesn't make any sense. And then the third job, I was like, I want that job. And so I already knew I didn't have the degrees required for the job. I already knew that. So I did apply through the system. But it was through Monster. Yeah. But I also did a whole bunch of research to find out who the recruiter is in that office for the jobs that I was going for. And so in the middle of the night, I found her information and sent her an email. And I outlined for her how I've had years of experience doing that job, and what an awesome, I told her I would rock this job out.
Well, and they weren't confident.
So absolutely. That's the one thing that, I'm never arrogant, because I know God gave me everything. Yeah. He gave me the ability to learn, to read, and it is Him who brings things to my remembrance. Because people always say to me, Hope, how can you remember all that stuff? all God required of me. Yeah, all God required of me is that I put it in there. It's His job. He will bring it to my remembrance when I encounter the right people for that information.
You and I are so alike, it's scary.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a faith person. That's my whole life. I've believed in my faith since I was 7 years old. I have journals over here of my life since then. I started before that. My aunt gave me a little Woolworth's diary, and I used to write in there. She told me to write in there all the things that's going on in my life that's wrong, and she said, and go back and see later how God has fixed it. So I have journal after journal about what was wrong. Oh, God, help me. La, 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 la. And then I can tell you when he went back, when it happened that he fixed it.
Yeah.
I mean, so what I'm talking about is not something somebody told me.
I've got another show that I'm going to have you on. We're going to talk more about that stuff.
Yeah, because I can go there all day. Because
Oh, me too. So you don't know this about me, but I actually have a bachelor's degree in the Bible.
oh, I was about to do that. That's so funny. Instead, I have like I'm a licensed a whole bunch of things. Missionary, evangel,
I was
So
gonna I was gonna try to be a psychologist in South Africa for the kids that get
uh-huh.
raped because I don't know if
Oh,
you heard
yeah.
this, but they the myth there is that if you have sex with a virgin, it cures you of AIDS.
Oh, they
So
have a lot of them.
these little girls get raped, they get stolen from their families and raped, and then the families, basically don't want to have anything to do with them. They disavow
Right.
them, and the
hmm
kids a lot of times then they're contracting the virus, and
hmm
they get it, and so then they're a
It's a
kid who's
cycle.
they're a kid who's
They
been
get
raped,
pregnant and then.
and they've got HIV, and it's like, what do you do? So I was going to go down there and counsel them. That was my heart. Now
hmm
God's smarter than I am. He decided to close that door, so I'm doing
Right.
Help You Grow instead for whatever reason. So
Well, my place was Haiti. Haiti
there,
was my place. That was my place.
there you
Still
go.
have never set one foot in Haiti.
It's funny.
But
My daughter's in Bible college right now.
uh
She's going to Bible college. She wants to go next door to Mozambique, and
okay.
she wants to serve there as a missionary. So
Well, I ran into this man in the church I went to for many years, and he worked at ITC, what is it, Interdenominational Theological Colleges over at Morehouse. And he was my Sunday school teacher for a long time. And he listened to everything I had to say. I mean, the man was just so patient. Well, why do I need to get baptized? Like
right,
the basics, from the basics all the way up to the complex. And
yeah,
he explained something to me when I was so upset because they didn't choose me to go. And they didn't choose me to go because I was disabled in the military. So they
oh
couldn't guarantee how I would get anywhere. And
yeah,
so they didn't feel comfortable sending me there. And I was like, well, it's not up to you, it's up to God.
right,
And they're
right,
like, yeah, that's true, but we're handling logistics.
yeah, yeah. We still have to
So
think about these things legally.
so what he told me was, he said, Hope, you're missing the whole point. He was one of those really soft-spoken guys that you had to lean in and listen to what he had to say. And he explained it to me. He said, if you belong to Christ, to God, then every place that you set your foot, that's your mission field.
100%.
So if
100%.
you're in Walmart, guess
Yep.
what? That's your
Yep.
mission field.
Yep.
If you're in the workplace, mission field.
You
And
won't
so
serve,
then,
you won't serve locally. What makes you think you're going to serve
well,
internationally?
but I
I
was
mean,
young.
that's what a lot of people don't think about it that way. They're like, well, I would do it if I was out on the mission field. Well, I'm going to tell you,
We
if
are.
you're not doing it where you are, then because
Welcome.
yeah, what does it say? Jerusalem, Samaria, and outermost parts of the earth. I mean, it's the Great Commission is everywhere, not just.
And that's it. So I do call myself, I am a great commission person, and
Yeah,
that's why my commission is right here at my desk right now. My feet on the ground, but
wherever
I'm
you are,
using
wherever,
exactly. And
wherever you
so
are.
that's why, people say, well, Hope, should I pay you something? Most of the time I'm helping people who can't pay me
Yeah, well, that's
because we're
Project. It's
trying to
100%.
stabilize.
People don't understand that. Like, Ira, why would you do all this work? Like, I pay to run the website. I invest
hmm
all my time. I do all the stuff is free. The videos,
Right.
the podcasts, the blogs that I write, all the job listings I find and post, and the engagement that I get with employers, even reaching out to you, you're volunteering your time. It's 100% free. People don't understand that. Like,
Mhm.
what motivates you to do that? I'm like, well, if I called it ministry, most people wouldn't want anything to do with it. So I call it philanthropy, and then they come and get the free
Mhm.
help. And I don't talk
And
about religion with them. There's no
right.
not proselytizing on
No, you don't have to.
it's just when people ask me that question, what motivates you to do it? I'm like, well, God motivates me.
Exactly.
The
That's
answer to
why.
the question, but that's the answer.
But that is the answer. And that is why this guy that I've been married to, he gets it. He gets it. This is my thing.
Yeah.
So then, if this is the thing that makes me happy, why wouldn't we feed that?
Yep.
I mean, God has blessed me with a job, so our bills are taken care of. I'm a disabled veteran. God has taken care of that. I don't need to do this to eat.
Yeah. Me
And
too.
I don't need to steal from my brothers and sisters who
Yep.
need my help. And
That's
so,
right.
no, I never talk about Christianity. I don't need to talk about Christianity. I don't
You
have to talk
should
about Jesus Christ. I'm just living in his spot and I'm
shine,
doing what he would want me to
shine.
do. So then that's it.
That's why I was
You know,
attracted to you. So again, I
that's
didn't
why people are
even know it,
that.
but there you go.
That's
All
why.
right.
But
So
I
let's,
got to get back to what you were talking about
yeah. So
education. I
on
said that
you
how
know,
it's the classes that make it more important, and then the experience. So in the federal government, you can't show up and say, "Oh, but I'm a fast learner.
yeah,
I'm very likable." People, you got to
yeah,
have the experience before you get to the door, which
yeah,
means that you have to have an understanding of what they're asking for because it's not just in the vacancy announcement. And then you said it's who you know. I
yep.
got to admit that. Um, in all of my federal jobs, I did not know anyone at the agency before I got it.
Okay.
I got it strictly on qualifications.
On merit. That's what we call a
I,
merit.
I I went in, I was qualified for the job. I went to my interview. Well, actually, I can't say that because it's two jobs I had I didn't interview for. And they came about. The one I just had at the VA, that was a little different because I was already in their system having applied for HR positions in the past. And then there's not a lot of people who can do classification. And so then they called and just gave me the job. But that was just, again, out of my qualifications. I didn't know
Yeah,
anybody.
your experience and qualifications is what got you those jobs,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't
So
know those people. So,
there's this ugly
mhm,
word
mhm.
in the private sector called nepotism,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
It's here, it's in the federal space.
nepotism, unfortunately, is rampant. You see it a lot.
Mhm.
Kids that are brought into companies and they're already managers or VPs or line of succession, frankly, and they have little or no experience and sometimes little or no desire, really, or passion. And that's why I was actually talking to somebody the other day. You see it all the time in the private world. You've got the business founder was a true entrepreneur, and
Mhm.
usually the kid has a different set of qualities. So they're usually
Mhm.
not entrepreneur, but a lot of times those
Mhm.
can still work. So you go from owner, founder to kid, and that is a successful or smooth transition.
Mhm.
But then where the businesses typically fail is that third generation. They come in and their family has always had that business as far as their,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like it's
The
not.
entitlement. I'm entitled to it, of
Yeah,
course.
it's not in jeopardy, and this is just, it's not necessarily my thing, but they think it's gonna be easy because isn't it
Right.
easy to make money? You know what I mean? I think that's what happens, but anyways, a lot of those businesses fail in the 3rd generation. It's very rare that you see successful 3rd generation businesses statistically. Um, but
But,
nepotism
mhm.
is more than just that. Also, you have the friends, right? Like, you're gonna get this job because you're my wife's, you know
Uh-huh.
friend, or you're going to get this job because you're my uncle's drinking buddy or whatever. I mean, it could be anything, but that who helps in a variety of ways. Either you get the job just because of the relationship, or you get the interview. Because
Mhm.
let's go back. Let's peel that back one step where you said, you knew you didn't have the degree to get the job, and you basically proved you could do the job by doing the research to figure out who the recruiter is and send her the email. That proved you could do the job right there. But that doesn't happen so much in my space because people, frankly, are lazy. What more happens than not is, well, you want to do that job and you know somebody who's connected to the hiring manager. And so you reach out to
Mhm.
them and say, hey, can you pass my information along? Can you give me a referral? And then they get in the interview round, not through the ATS, but they go around that process and they get in the stack. Now, once you're in the interview round in civilian world, for the most part, the resume becomes a moot point. So there's really
Wow.
there's 2 levels of the hiring process as far as the civilian world goes. There's pre-interview and interview.
Mhm.
The pre-interview, you either have to have a solid resume that's written correctly to get through the ATS gate, and that's a presumption that they're using the ATS because there are still a lot of companies that don't.
Don't,
But
yeah.
if they're using an ATS, you have to get through that ATS gate. But anyways, you have to get to the interview. Once you get to the interview, it's almost like a reset where the pre-interview rankings, the 1 to 100, the point system that we're about to talk about,
Mhm.
those points no longer matter. Now it's who does the best job, who wows the interview, who does the homework for the interview and who has the best performance, the type of rapport that they can build in the interview. That all matters. And then
Right.
then of course there's the third part, which we haven't talked about, which is the asking salary. With government work, it's pretty much mandated. This is what you're going to make, right? It's not a lot of
No,
no.
no,
Okay,
it's
so
not.
in the civilian
For the
world,
most part.
in the
But
civilian world, a lot of times they don't tell you what the pay is, and that's one of the questions that they're going to ask you, and one of the factors that's going to determine if you land a job or not. Because if I interview 3 people and I really like 2 of them, okay, so let's drop the one out. Now there's just 2. One person's asking for 85,000 a year, the other's asking for 60. Well, if I like them both and they're both, acceptable, I'm going to take the 60 because I just saved the company $25,000 a year, and that's the way that will go. A lot of people don't think about that as their strategy in the hiring, but I tell people, well, I have a whole article that I wrote on don't ask for too little, because again, this might be different in the government, which is something we can talk about, but in the civilian world, you're not promised a raise really ever. Like even like cost of living increases and these things are not guaranteed. So if
no.
you start out at 60 thinking, well, it's okay because I'm going to work really hard, which you should anyways. I don't understand why people say that. I'm going to work really hard. Well, why wouldn't you? But anyways, that's just my work ethic. So you're going to work really hard and I'm going to prove my worth and they're going to give me a raise really fast. And then they get shocked when 2 years later, they're still working for that same 60 or whatever they started for. Because they're not even asking in the interview process a lot of times, how do you handle promotions and raises, which is something I advise them to do. You should address that in this anytime you're interviewing civilian. You should address that question. How do I get a raise? How do I get a promotion? And they almost always are going to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So it gives you a perfect opportunity to ask that question back. Like, well, I would like to be working here and hopefully I'll be, up the next level or 2, in management. I'll be, the supervisor or the department manager. And then you can follow up with that question. Hey, that, brings up a great point. How do you guys handle promotions and raises? And then when you get the job offer, because this is what happens here, you'll get a job offer. You'll get a written offer. It's usually sent via email anymore. It's not usually, mailed out, but you'll get the PDF, you'll read it and it'll say, here's your starting salary. So that's when you find out what you're actually going to make. And then you can negotiate, which a lot of people don't understand that is a negotiation. Open.
Right.
Not, it's not like take it or leave it. Usually there's usually some wiggle
Right.
room. And they have a budget number. So like I used to be a hiring manager and I was given a window, like, Ira, you have permission to hire anybody inside this window. If somebody wants to go above this window, then I would have to reach out to the owner of the company and ask for, permission or approval to authorization to go above. But I did do that in certain cases where I would interview somebody that was so much head and shoulders above the other candidates. It's like, I know these people are outside my budget, but they are amazing. And sometimes I got approval and sometimes I didn't. But anyways, okay. So
well, a lot of things you said is just the opposite in the federal government. But some things are the same. Some things are the same.
I brought all that up because I do think, and you're just going to confirm it now. This again, I don't know a lot of this stuff for fact because I haven't studied it. So that's why I'm happy to have you on the show. Let's talk about all those things if you have time. Let's talk about all those, because I think people need to know styles make fights. And if you're in a certain type of a fight, you need to use certain methodologies, which is why I want to bring you on the show, because the methodologies that I teach people for civilian stuff, I think it would not help them get hired. In fact, it might be the opposite, might keep them.
Yes. So exactly. It's a hindrance. So let's talk about the reason why the ATS was created. That is the reason why they came up with the federal hiring system. So many moons ago, back in Jefferson days, they said, hey, we have too much nepotism going on here. We need to set up a system in which we are hiring the best person for the job, the person who's qualified. And so that's when it started to evolve into the idea of equal pay for substantially equal work. And so how do we control that? And so then that's why they started putting in a classification system. And the classification system is set up in such a way that they have chosen, gone through the process of identifying the major jobs in the federal system. A lot of them have been eliminated, but, of course, we still have a lot left. But back then, it was, okay, let's come up with these families, these groups, and then under there, let's list the jobs that would be appropriate. And then they, the Office of Personnel Management, their job was to set the standards for those jobs. And that's what they did. And so I gave you like the short version of that, but I don't think anybody really cares about the history. They just want to know, okay, well, how do I beat the system?
I think that's what
Um,
we want. Yeah.
so, but in the classifiers world, which is something that I use every day, um, the idea is that we're going to make sure that you're in the right job series. So that's the first thing that they look for. The HR specialist they could be called compensation classifiers, recruiting compensation classifiers. It can be all kinds of ways, but it all comes back down to classification. And the Office of Personnel Management is the one who set the standards, especially for all the jobs that are out there on USA Jobs. Now, there are a whole nother group of jobs that each agency has been given authority to hire people under. So, for example, what we see on USA Jobs are primarily what we call Title V jobs. And there's some Title 31s. That's where the reserve units are, that you have to be connected to the military in order to get those jobs. But with Title V jobs, the whole goal is that everything is subject to the process that was created by the Office of Personnel Management. But if I'm an agency and I have a job that I really want to pull from different, really in OPM world, different job series and mush it all together, then they've been given the authority to create Title 38 and Title 38 hybrid jobs. So they can get the person. So I need a nurse that's going to work in the surgery department. They're going to work in ICU. I mean, they're going to work in a variety of places where normally under OPM, that's just one job. Surgery is one job. And so then they smush them all together, and that's a hybrid job, a Title 38. So most of the jobs in the federal government are not on the USA Jobs website.
Okay.
They are behind the scenes. They are on the individual agency's website. And so that's why I tell people, when you're going through USA Jobs and you're looking at those vacancy announcements, you need to take your time with each word and each link, because they're trying to give you the information that you need to prove your qualifications. And so the system was created in such a way that this is the part of the system that nobody sees, is classification. So the standard the Office of Personnel Management has in place is what is used to create the position description. So the classifier works, in a consulting basis with the hiring manager to say, what do you want this person to do? And they can't do that until the position is vacated. So the person has retired or moved on, or if they're creating a new position, then we all get together and say, what do you want this position to do? We use the standard to come up with, well, not to come up with, but to basically like a menu to choose off of it what the hiring manager wants this person to do. And then the classifiers take it back, we classify it, and we make sure of two things. We make sure that the duties and responsibilities that they've listed there fall in line with the job series that was created for that particular kind of job. And if it's not, then we got to go back and forth. And then the next thing we make sure that the job is written to the specifications of the grade level that they need. So then that means that if it's a GS7 position, then they don't have GS9 work on the GS7 job position, because that means that we're out of whack. We're not equal pay for equal work.
Right.
So it's the classifier's job in the agencies to make sure that that is done correctly. And when I say it's their job, I mean they're the ones that literally have to sign off on it, and make sure that that's what's going on. Otherwise, you have people who will say, well, I was hired as a GS9 and I'm doing GS14 work because I have to help my supervisor do their job. Well, the problem with that is there's a percentage of your job that you do that dictates the grade level and the job series. So if you're not doing their 14 job all the time, you're just helping them do administrative tasks to support them. That's not the same. So then people I need a desk audit. I want someone to come sit with me, see what I do, and see how I'm doing their work. And that usually ends badly for anyone who's ever done it, mainly because of the way things are set up with the standards. Most people are not working at their job standard level, which means when OPM comes to look, or the auditor comes to look, which is also at classifiers, that's exactly what usually happens. So one of my rules, I always tell people, never question, never call for an audit, just find another job.
Yeah.
Don't question it.
Move on.
Right. So we use that system to do everything. We use that system to bring people in. We use that system to bring people onto the next level of their job.
That's
so then
interesting.
say again?
One thing that's different, I'm hearing
Mhm.
right off the bat, I just want to clarify, is there a cost of living consideration for areas like San Diego is obviously going to be more expensive than maybe like, you're in Las Vegas or
Okay, so yes, it's just like the military. You have your base pay, and then you have your locality pay. So let me
okay,
put that in the
great.
chat box for everyone to have that, because that's one of the important things that people don't consider when you're, especially when you're getting out of the military. People say, "Oh, well, we're going to live there in the corner of the world with no jobs."
Yeah,
Great job. And then you wonder, okay, if I've retired from the military, what am I going to do next? Because most people can't make it off of their retirement pay. I mean,
right.
you have the security of it's coming every month, but that also means that you do not have um, you may not have all the money that you need to live a certain lifestyle. Okay, so I put that in the chat box. Um, can I
Gotcha.
do other? Okay,
No,
can
it's
did that
okay.
go?
I'll take that. I'll take that and put that.
Okay, because I'm only private. Okay, so
So we
so
so ju-
so
this is
that's the
just a
salary
behind the
table.
scenes thing.
Uh-huh.
We're on StreamYard. So any
Hmm.
of the comments you put will go to me, then I can put them on the show.
Gotcha. Okay, so that is the website that you go to. Of course, it's opm.gov. That has all of the what we call GS, or general schedule locality pay tables. So when you see GS, it's a pay band. It's just the Army has theirs, the Navy has theirs, the DoD, and it's different for FAA. Just depends on the agency, but for the most part, we have GS jobs, general schedule jobs. And so then you choose the location where you're eventually going to work, and that is the one you look at. So I'm going to bring up Atlanta, and then I'll put it in the chat box, because I think
I'll
people. Mhm.
I'm gonna put this link for everybody. I'm gonna put
Oh
USAA
yeah.
jobs and I'm gonna put OPM. I'll put this on Project Help You Grow's partners tab so that people can find this later too. If you're watching this show after the live is over, go to the partners tab on Project Help You Grow. I'll have these links there so you can just click straight to them. I have a bunch of resources there for veterans already. So this
Hmm.
this this will help add to that pile. For
Well,
example, the
mhm.
industry is on there, right? They're one of the partners that I've got listed. And
So this is the way I do my classes. Is basically I put everything in the chat box. That usually includes the documents, the links, so that people can have them. I don't do PowerPoint. I prefer to show you where
yeah,
everything is, so
yep,
you don't need me anymore. You just know where it is,
right.
and you have your links.
That's why I have the partners tab. The partners tab is great because like here's the resources that I used. Go grab them anytime you want.
Right. We're gonna teach you how to fish.
Yeah, that's what Project Happy Girl is all about. This is fishing lessons. I teach you to
Right.
fish. Go find your
Right.
fish yourself. 100%.
That's right. Once you go through my classes and you get it, you're set for the rest of your career in the federal government. So, can you
So
bring up one of the? Go ahead.
Brianna just asked this question, and I think you've already addressed it. This
Mhm.
is actually probably easier in the government than it is in the private sector right now. If you just have a college degree,
Mhm.
no work experience,
Mhm.
because of what you said about it's the classes that you take and you get points based on your
Mhm.
classes. In the private sector right now, a lot of these
Mhm.
quote unquote entry level jobs are requiring something like 2 to 3 years of experience.
Mhm.
Two on top of, and that's where you have to do an internship or something like that. So Brianna has just asked what jobs are for entry level college graduates, and from the four buckets, I think you said clerical and assistants in admin and professional. You probably get jobs in any of those, right? In those categories.
That's what people think, but that's not what happens.
Right.
You
Well,
still have to know how to do the administrative tasks.
yeah,
Just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you know how to do
right.
administrative management. It doesn't, those two things don't go together. So I'll put another link in there. So on the USA Jobs website, if you want to bring it up, if you just go to USA Jobs,
Yep.
the main landing page, usajobs.gov.
Yep.
Okay, so scroll back down to where you see hiring paths. So keep going.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I gotta move her comment out of the way.
Okay. So when you
Okay,
talk
here we go.
about hiring paths, this is what you're really looking for. So depending on your background and your experiences, you qualify for one or more of these in these areas. So what I tell people who just have gotten degrees and they didn't have internships while they were in school, And even if they're going for a job that's not even the same as what they got the degree in, is the federal government has something. Click on the yellow one that says students and recent graduates.
Yep.
So the thing about the federal government is they're always thinking ahead about succession planning. They're always looking for the people to bring into their agencies to teach them their agencies' ways. And so they have this. The federal government is driven by OPM. Have this magical program called the Pathways Program. So it's set up for two kinds of people. The first one are people who are students. So they don't care if you're a 60-year-old student or a 25-year-old student. If you're right now in a program, notice it says internships for current student in high school, college, trade school, or other qualifying educational institutions. You may be eligible. So that means if you are in school and you are working on welding, you're working on a nursing degree, this is for you. That means that you can click on there and go to, well, actually down at the bottom, there's there's an area at the bottom where if you want to go to internships, you click on the one on the left. If you're just a recent grad, then you click on that. But with the scholarship the internship programs, they're just what they sound like. Some of them are over the summer, some of them are longer. They work with your school schedule, and the whole idea is to bring you into the agency to teach you about the agency and see if you're a good fit. And what I mean by a good fit, I mean that you understand that this is the work that we do and you're willing to do the work that way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's indoctrination. I'm just saying that they're showing you how they do things and they're hoping that you stay with them.
No,
Um,
that makes
and the
perfect, that makes perfect sense to me. I think a lot of people don't appreciate, like when they're switching jobs in the private
Mhm,
sector, so you go from one company to another company, that just because you were, the same title,
mhm.
same position at this company doesn't mean that you're going to know how to do that same job at the next company, because they don't know, like, it's all the stuff you just talked about. This is the way that we do it here. This is our
Right.
filing system. These are the softwares that we have. These are the, all the supports that are in place. I mean, even
Mhm,
just CRMs, contact record managements, are
mhm,
different. I mean, everything can be different. So when
mhm.
you are considering, should I stay or should I go in the private world, that's one of the things I think people overlook. Like, just the familiarity with how everything works, like how the vacation systems work, the phone
Mhm.
systems, all of it. So, anyways, it's one of those things when I have switched jobs more times than I would like to admit here on this show. And every single company I worked for, everything was different. Like everybody had a different way that we would clock in, we would request vacations. Some companies like to micromanage you, some like the hands off approach, and just like,
Yep.
here's your task, go figure it out.
It's the
And
same in the federal government. There are some agencies that it's like the mob. You're there for life.
right, right.
You really are. And when you look at their jobs, you say, well, wow, they're not even bringing in 11s and 12s. That is because they promote from within.
Yeah.
And so once you get in there, you stay there forever. But the internship program is set up in such a way that you actually work alongside people to teach you what's going on, whatever the subject area you work in, or that your degree is in. If you scroll a little bit further down,
Yeah,
they
let me
have on this page under right there under additional resources, go up a little bit higher, where it says federal occupations by college major. You
yeah,
can click on that and it will help you if you're not sure what you should do, because everything comes down to job series in the federal government. So if you don't understand the job series that you qualify for, you will miss out on opportunities. So that's why one of the first things I have people to do is to look at the job families, and then under the families, look at the jobs to see how many of them you qualify for.
yeah,
Because if you're the one I always use, well, we can use commerce or chemistry, business law, even whatever you want to use. So when you look at these jobs, you see one is trade specialist series 1140, transportation specialist 2101. I mean, each one of those are coming from, except for the 21s, they're coming from a different job family. And most of them, if you go back up to accounting, it's like the perfect example, because you can be an accountant in the federal government, But I challenge people to look a little bit harder because that's the obvious one. We need accounting in every agency in most departments because they're managing a budget of some kind.
Right.
And this is the area of a weakness for the federal government in that they don't have a lot of people who can handle those numbers or who even want to be honest. And so you can look at this one. This is like the perfect
Let,
example, the one
let's
that I use.
We got
Uh-huh.
Brianna here. She has a degree in business, graduated from
Hmm.
college years ago, so she's looking at internships. Is
Hmm.
there so Brianna, tell us, are you looking for an admin type position? Are you looking for accounting? What is your degree in? So businesses, obviously there's business management and administration, accounting, all this different stuff. So tell us a little bit more because maybe we can help figure this out. But the question that I would have for you, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to ask this of me later.
Hmm.
Okay, Ira, in government, what are the soft, like, there are things right now that are hot in civilian private
Hmm.
sector jobs. Nursing, for example,
Hmm.
anything medical related seems to be, really hot. Um, are there areas where like the government's desperate for more people so people can go like, look, if I don't have my degree or maybe I'm entering school right now, these areas are huge voids or there's
Right.
need.
So there are many of them. The biggest one is IT.
Okay. So we'll go down
And
to
then the
IT.
new one, I mean, if you think when you really look at the jobs that people really that we really need in the federal government, they're pretty much not different from outside of the federal government.
Okay. So
What do I mean by
same,
that?
same idea.
We need IT people. Every agency needs IT people. I'm going to put this link into the chat box. And so then that's why they have this government-wide hiring authority that basically says that if these people come to you in the federal government and they have the qualifications, then you can hire them off of the street. So we have diagnostic radiology tech, medical officer, nurse, pharmacist, information technology management, and it was one veterinary medical officer in all of the STEM programs. So underneath it says STEM positions, economists, biological science, fishery biologists. These are the things they're looking for. If you scroll down a little bit more, you see IT was up there, but down here at the bottom, they've now added cyber. So they have everything cyber they need.
Okay.
We desperately need. And so then there are different hiring authorities that they can use to bring you on board. But if you don't ever apply with the resume that gets you past the classifiers,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because then you're not qualified for the job. So
So let's
that's why I focus my energy on showing people how to get past. It's not that they're not qualified, it's that they don't know how to communicate.
well, and you said
Basically,
earlier it comes down to
mhm,
points, right? So
that's right.
let's talk about the points because that's where people are going to make the interview or not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the hiring paths are set up. Um, what we were just looking at, where the students are, and just so that you know, if you've already graduated, then you qualify for the um, recent grad program. Is within 2 years of graduating. So if you just finished that last degree, you still have 2 years. With veterans, it's 6 years because we move around so much. But
Okay.
that's the second program right under internship. It's the recent grad program. And so there that is. Just open it up. And what you will find is that you're not at a disadvantage because you got the degree and didn't have any experience along the way. There are plenty of programs. So this is just the basic program for interns and graduates. Every agency has some kind of program on their site to bring in people with their specialties, unless they are a big monster like CDC. So CDC has so many fellowship programs to bring people in, that they actually are taken care of, or are what's the right word, managed by other organizations that they pay to do that. So if you go to the CDC website, you click on fellowships, they'll come up. But once you click on them, you're actually going to go to someone else's website and they're going to show you the requirements. So if you're in a particular area that you're working, you want to take the time to get to know, you know, which agencies have the fellowship programs for me. A lot of them have partnerships with colleges and universities. So sometimes the program sits on the college or university's website, but it's actually a program over there because they have partnerships in place. Like Emory University, they partner with CDC on most things. So then that's where it becomes important that you're not lazy. It
Mhm.
becomes important that you do your research. This is your whole career. This is how you're going to make your money. That means you need to discipline yourself, come off of YouTube a little bit, except for today, and go out there and find the
No, Netflix binging.
agencies, the agencies that have the jobs that you want, and find out what programs they have on their sites. But before you do that, usually you have to figure out what you want to do when you grow up.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that for most people, there are multiple things that they want to do. And, my grandmother told me they were all possible. I have done all but one of the things that I've wanted to do as an adult in terms of jobs. But I'm a little different because I'm willing to read and study and do what I have to do to fill my gaps
I'm a
to make
nerd.
sure I'm qualified for it. And
Yeah.
that's what it takes. It
Yeah.
takes, this is my career and this is what I want to do. So even if you've been in HR for 35 years, I never dissuade anyone because there is a way that you can go about getting prepared to be that investigative researcher. There is
Yeah.
a process you can go through for that. You
I,
just have to be willing to do it.
I get questions all the time from
Mhm,
people. They're in another country. They want to come to the United States.
mhm,
So they're looking for sponsorship for visa opportunities. And I
mhm,
tell people, like, if you really want it, I can help you get it. But I'm
mhm,
not talking about something that's going to happen like, Miracle Grow. I'm talking
mhm,
about, you're going to have to put in the work, and we're talking about years of time investment. So if you're committed to the process, like you said, you like to show people how to do it. So do I. That's why I write these blogs so that people they don't have to ask me the same question 1,000 times, although they will. They can just go read the blog and it'll teach them. But a lot of what you're saying is true in civilian world. If
mhm,
you really want to be, like, for example, I create websites for a living now. It's part of what I do. I wasn't doing that. I didn't go to school for it.
mhm,
I have 20 years of experience in the print world, not in website building, but I am self-taught. I learned how to do it on my own. I built a few sites for myself, and then my friend paid me to build his site. And then all of a sudden I had websites for other people to look at and go, oh yeah, you really do know what you're doing. And the
mhm,
more I do, obviously, the better I get at it. I got a compliment from one of my friends the other day. He's like, man, every website you put out is just a little bit better than the one before. And I'm like, thank you
mhm,
very much. That's nice. But again, to your point, you can, if you invest in, research instead of watching Netflix or YouTube. I actually like YouTube as a research tool now. I think
mhm,
it's one of the things, it's easy. If you're in the how-to section of YouTube, you can learn how to do it. My wife, oh my goodness,
mhm,
Hope, my wife
mhm,
built a shower just by watching YouTube. She watched all
mhm.
these different videos. She did it. We hired a contractor. They totally failed. We ripped out what they did. We started over. I did the demo. My wife did everything else. So we have a fully functional, like, it's beautiful shower, and she learned how to do it on YouTube.
Well,
Crazy,
that's
but
the world of micro learning. I mean,
yeah,
that's the way the world has been turning for a long time. Is not that you're going that even now people don't want to do traditional college and university studies. They don't want to do it that way. It takes forever, and I don't want to spend month after month talking about psychology. I just don't.
yeah,
And so then the world has shifted for that, and to teach people, adults especially, one of the things adults don't do is they don't know how they learn best. And if they could figure that part out,
yeah.
then they're good.
I got
I'm a
you.
big reader,
Yeah.
so up until I was 41 years old, I only slept 4 hours a night. That was intentional. It wasn't that I was not tired. I was. Is that I always have something that I'm learning.
Yep.
And so it was important to me that, okay, I got to go to work, so I can't do it during work hours.
Right.
And then when I came home, I either had another job or I had kids to take care of. So
Yeah.
it didn't work out. So then
Yeah.
I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the books from the library. I know how old that sounds, but I used to like sleep with books. And then, of course, now, everything is on the internet. But even with the
Did your
internet,
husband get jealous of you sleeping with those books?
no, he just knocked them off.
Alright.
Just knocked them off.
Good
Uh,
job.
we work well together. Um, but see, I remember when the internet started
Right.
with the modem box that you just unplug your phone with in the office and then
Right.
plug
Come
it
on.
into
Come on.
and yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so then once the internet hit, it was just like, wait a minute, okay. I have access to the what libraries and what's on
Right.
there.
Right.
And so then to me, it just fed my hunger to know more about everything.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, all this information that I know because I studied it. That's where I get my confidence from. I can sit here with you for hours and people ask me questions, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to find the answer. Either I already know it or I know where to get it.
I know where to
And
get
that
it.
too, that
That's what
comes
I
from
mean.
being a being a corporate librarian. I mean, that's what you do all day is you sit there and people ask you strange things about a spice, an herb. I've done things on, you know, trademarks all the way down to a tire or, the strangest things that you go, okay, I'll get as
Yeah.
much information as I can about it and I'll
Well,
write something up and
it's
share it with you.
it's funny in the print business. That's one
Mhm.
of the things that I loved about it. I was helping all my clients had different types of businesses, and I was helping them with their stuff. So I got to learn about all kinds of different things, and that made the job fun for me. In fact, what you're saying relates to me even today. Now with Bowman Digital Media, I'm creating social media graphics, websites, and videos for small to medium business owners, and they all have
Mhm.
different stuff. So I have a guy that's in the finance world. I have a lady who's a coach, health and fitness. I've got a legal guy. I've got a guy in the medical field. All kinds of different avenues, and I have to look up stuff to make sure that it's on their website and it works, and I'm using the right terminology or nomenclature. Is the highbrow word there, but you know what I mean, using the right expressions so that people can,
Mhm.
when they come, they're looking at it or their keywords are all correct. I love to read, but what you're talking about is sacrificing. You made you
Absolutely.
made a sacrifice to reposition yourself, and that's where some
Exactly.
people, like, they just want it handed to them. Like, well,
Well,
you just do all the work for me. And I'm like, okay, I don't, it's called Project Help You Grow because I'm here to help you grow. I'm not here to just give it to you. Like, it isn't Ira's free gift to the world is, you get a new job because I'm not coming to work and clocking in for you. When you get the job, you're going to have to actually do the job too. Right. So,
right. So I'll talk about that too. So I my system, you do it yourself. You don't pay other people to do your federal resume. If you want, you can pay someone anywhere from $200 up to $5,000 to do a
yeah.
federal resume for you that they say immediately is going to get you hired. The problem is, are they lying on the resume to get you in the door? So there are a lot of checks in the federal government. One of them is, they call your supervisors that you've had in the past. It is not those casual conversations about with verifying that you were employed. It's the federal government. They can ask whatever they want, and that's what they do. They dig deep into your life. The
Yeah.
references that you list on there, they call each and every one of them. They have conversations about real life things, about your attitude, your work ethic. They ask all those questions. So you can pay someone to do that and then say, well, I'm going to tweak it and do this and thus and so with it. But in the end, if it doesn't communicate what you know how to do, the federal government is hiring you to show up already ready to do that job. There's no training process.
Right.
Even with the internships, they are training you and teaching you things, but you have to have the basics. That's why they say after you've had some training or while you're doing your training, it's not just come out the basement one day and say, hey, I'm going for this internship. You have to have something that makes them believe that you can actually do the job. And so
100%.
that's why it's like that. It's like high school, trade school, college, university. They're very serious about that. It
Where
is
can we get
important.
the system? Do you have like a website or a place that they can go and get the system that you're teaching?
There is no system. I made it up in my head.
All right.
I mean, it's a system, but
How do
it's
I
not out there. I'm
how
sorry,
do I
it's not
plug
out
in?
there.
How do I plug into Hope's head?
Well,
so
sometimes it comes. Go ahead.
so the best way for them to get a hold of you to get access to the information is an appointment. They would just reach out to you like on LinkedIn and say, hey, let's can we schedule some time? Is that how they would do it?
That is the way it goes right now. I prefer that they take my classes first because a lot of the questions and a lot of things that they want to talk about initially are just covered in the classes. By the time someone gets to me, they should have already figured out the job series
Yeah.
and they will have a really good idea what grade level they're working at.
Okay.
And so then by the time they get to me, it's conversations more about the other job series. Okay, if I'm an IT person, what other job series should I look at? And I get that because it is a lot of job series, but I can tell you what most of them are. If you're in IT, you should consider HR. Like you should consider HR because we have these jobs called HRIS, Human Resource Information Systems people. They work right alongside HR to take care of the HR systems. And
Yeah.
so if you have a technology background, you're more likely to compete against people who have an HR background. But in this case, they need you to know both, but you can get away with not knowing all the HR stuff to work on the IT
Yeah,
systems.
in the private sector, that's an advantage because if you're sitting in a department that's got 8 people and they
Mhm.
7 of them are specialists in human resources, and your specialty is IT, well, they can help you with any gaps. They're right there to help fill in any information that you wouldn't know yourself. But if you're the only one who knows the IT part, then you become an integral part of that cog.
Yes, you do. And so that's what I try and do.
Without the IT.
Right. So I come in where you've already figured some things out. To start with me is to ask questions like this that I already answer in the classroom.
Right.
So I try to explain to people, I do get some people who are very aggressive on LinkedIn. I can handle it.
Yeah, it
I'm
happens.
good for that.
It happens.
But like you need to do this now. Okay, so understand, I have a job that I do for someone else, a federal agency. I do that job for them during the day. I also have a family. And so then I don't have a schedule that's open to take 20 people a day.
Right.
So by the time you get to me, you need to have already figured out some things. Now
Right.
I am now getting more into my coaching thing, but even with that, it takes a certain amount of time to do that.
I
So
get
if you go ahead.
I get random calls. Do you now? So my phone number is published in several places on websites and even in my
Mhm.
LinkedIn profile. And I'll get people who just randomly call and they expect that they're just going to start talking and I have time to sit there and listen. I'm not rude. I answer the phone unless I'm in a meeting like this. I wouldn't answer my phone, right? But I'll answer it and then they'll just start wanting to like dive into like their question or what they're trying to sell me. And it's like, you didn't think you needed an appointment? I mean, I
Well,
guess I'm raised a different generation. I think you and I are raised about the same time. Uh,
absolutely.
people's time is valuable, and I don't
It's
want
the
people
most valuable thing I have.
right. And
Money comes and goes, but time?
I don't want people to think that they can just
Well,
call and take.
Ira, I am very insulated. I work for an agency that I have to account for who I'm in touch with. I have a top secret clearance that I need to keep to do my job. And
Yeah,
so then that was one of the concerns initially because what we're doing now, I used to do it like in a room with people. Rent out some space. I had
yeah,
a company that I work with. They're wonderful people. And so they did have access to me. That was a concern. But they understood, my drive and what I wanted to do. What I'm doing now has nothing to do with my job.
right,
And
right.
so then, I went through the whole clearance process, the whole ethics review, and we understand that what I'm doing has nothing to do with my job. But I am sharing a lot of information, but it has nothing to do with my agency or my job. But I need my top secret clearance and I need my sleep because I'm older now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't live over 4 hours anymore. More
Uh,
importantly, my family is the most important thing. So no, I have a Google number that I use for my business.
there you go.
And the Google number allows me to manage it along with LinkedIn because I don't give my number out very often.
Yeah,
Even if you go out there, I think if you click on me, the contacts is going to be my Google number. I have to be available 8 hours during the day to do my real job. So then I can't sit with people and do coaching and all of that stuff.
right, right. So
And
when
so then I'm
so you
very controlled about it.
are you doing it mostly on Saturdays? Is that the coaching?
No, actually, most of my classes are during the week
Okay. So
at
in the
6 p.m. Eastern
yeah.
Standard Time. That's when I have my classes. I was doing 7 classes a week.
How do people get into a class? Like if they say, "Hey,
Um,
watch this like Brianna, I think would be a good candidate for your classes." How would
um,
she?
so on my LinkedIn, or actually, can I put documents in here?
Sure,
I
you
don't
can.
think I can. Can I? Let me
Actually, I
dra-
don't know if you can or not.
let me
Um,
drag and drop and see what happens.
I've got
So
your,
I have a schedule that I post out there for everyone.
but I've got your link.
Uh,
I've got your
okay,
LinkedIn.
so it should be right there. I mean, once you scroll down a little bit, it should be up at the top. Uh-oh, it looks different. So right there on the right, that's my schedule. And so you just download the PDF and then click on the class that you want to go to, and it sets you up to register
And
on on
this is what you're doing right here.
that's it. So then you just download it and click on the class you want to take, and that's it. And then show up for class, because
Yeah.
people register and then they forget. Now I go in and send out reminders for that all the time, but still, put it on your calendar. Zoom allows you to do that.
All right, and also I love it. You've got the crisis line here for vets.
Oh,
That's super
absolutely. I mean,
cool.
that's my motivation. The reason why this is one of the reasons why it's so important to me is that when veterans are in transition, is when they experience homelessness and joblessness, and then they get depressed, and they're already dealing with all the stuff that they brought from the military with them, and so it's just compounded on them. And so that's why we end up with, what they used to say was 22 veterans commit suicide every day. During COVID, they've increased that to 25. And so then if we can, as veterans, we need our mission. And so
Yeah,
we can get that mission started. And because there's so many advantages of coming from the military into the federal government, so that's why, yeah, I will always have that up there.
I have
It's a
I have
it's a big
I have a
thing.
very big soft spot for suicide prevention. I actually I don't like to share all the stuff, but one time I actually walked in to a room. I was on a men's retreat. Actually, it was a religious thing. I was at a
Hmm.
religious retreat, and a vet. He is a vet. He was one of my good friends, and he was in the cabin when we were all supposed to be in a meeting room. And because I knew him so well, they asked me, "Hey, can you go see if you can find him?" So, anyways, I walk in. He was in the act of committing suicide, and
Oh,
luckily,
wow.
I was able to stop him and talk him down. And he's still alive to this day, which is amazing. But that's like that's the most real it was ever for me, because that's the only time in my life but I've had friends who committed suicide. I've had people that I know, acquaintances. Even this year, one of my friends committed suicide, which a lot of people know her. But anyways, I
I
don't.
knew
Like,
her too.
yeah, I don't want to get into. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
But
I was
suicide's real.
crushed.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It is
Right.
a
My experience with suicide was in basic training. And I got up. I know this was God. I know people say that all the time, but I'm a hard sleeper. I got up and went into, I was like, what was that? Like, I don't know why I went in there, but I actually walked in on someone doing the same thing.
yeah
And
yeah.
so it became very real for me. I was 20 years old. That was
It would
very real
change,
for me.
it would change your life
And absolutely.
if you ever experience that. It'll change you. I mean, I think I'm a better person for it, but man, I don't.
It's the human condition. It's that feeling I am no good. I can't achieve. I mean, you're so beaten down by life and people. And that's why it costs us nothing to be nice to people.
hundred
A
percent,
smile costs nothing.
100%. Now,
Um,
I have this bad habit of teasing the ones I love. Right. So if I like you, so I think it's nice, but I am good at sarcasm. So sometimes I
I live
come
with
off,
sarcasm.
sometimes I can come
My
off
husband's from
a
Brooklyn.
little bit snarky to my friends. But I only tease the ones I love, Hope. So as I become more and more close to you, and I feel this bond happening between us over this show, I will tease you a little more than I will a stranger. But I always try to be nice. Like, being nice is the core of Ira, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes people will misunderstand me, and I'm sorry for that, but it happens.
Well, no,
But
I live with sarcasm. It's no big
being nice
deal.
is important. Like,
Yeah.
100%. You don't know the challenges people are going through. You don't know the
Mm-mm.
battles that they faced, what they
No.
deal with. You and veneers. Oh my goodness, the guy that when I walked in, I had no clue the struggles that he was facing up
Hmm.
to that point. I
Hmm.
thought he's a guy who's gainfully employed. He's happily married. He's got a
Hmm.
child. He's in a leadership position in church. This is
Hmm.
a good guy. Everything's going good, and he's so messed up in his mind where he's got his
Hmm.
priorities wrong, where he's thinking it's better if I just end it. And I learned a lot about him for real that night, because we sat
Yep.
there and talked for quite a while. But that was one of the things that opened my eyes. Like, look, you just don't know.
No, you do not.
So I think one of the things with COVID, and I'm sure this is true for you in the military as well as so government, civilian, whatever. Um, if you notice people that have changed something recently, those are the ones that got to reach out to, right? New haircut. Maybe they're not talking to you as much. Maybe they're talking to you more. Sounds crazy, but it could be any change that deviates from the norm. You want to reach out to them to say, "Hey, are you doing good?" No, like really, are you really good? You know what I mean? Like you got to get
Well,
beyond
there's
the
a word. There's a
social.
word to look out for. The word is fine.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
I'm
fine.
fine.
I'm
I'm
fine.
fine.
No, I'm
No,
not
you're
fine.
not fine. You're not
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Let's talk
And
about that.
so, yeah, I mean, if you go online, there's so many classes you can take for free that
Yeah,
shows you the signs of someone, like if you really care about it.
yeah,
If you really care about people who are suffering with PTSD, there's so many classes out there that you can take to help you better understand those people.
yeah.
It becomes important because you don't know who those people are until you know the behavior. You
Right,
can work right next to someone and not even know that they're a veteran.
right. I think
I
that
worked next to people for years. They didn't even know I was disabled.
for me,
Mhm.
for me, the best source of lookouts to help people, stay safe are the ones that you are the closest to,
Right.
your inner circles, right? So even though I might work shoulder to shoulder with somebody, I'm not necessarily in their inner circle. You
Mm-mm.
really, whoever that group is to you, you need to check in on them. Like,
Absolutely.
I hate to say this, but I call my mom more than I used to.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure she's doing
Right.
good. You know,
Oh, I
like
understand that.
my brother,
Mhm.
I call my brother. It's like, you guys are important to me to the point where I want to know if you're struggling, not
Mhm.
to judge you or anything like that. It's, to be a sympathetic and an understanding ear and to let you know that you're loved. I think that's what the
Mhm.
crux of it all comes down to is that you're appreciated and you're loved and respected by somebody. They care if
Mhm.
you like you matter. You matter is so important. You know what I mean? Like you make
Absolutely.
the person I was talking about, my friend who died, like, I talked to that lady at least every other day for
I'm pretty
years.
sure we're talking about the same person on
Pretty
LinkedIn.
sure we are. I'm pretty sure we
And,
are.
and she and I met and it was like heaven.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was like heaven. Anyway, yeah.
yeah, so she mattered to
We
me.
zoomed a lot. We zoomed a
She
lot.
she mattered she mattered to me greatly, and
Yeah.
I mattered to her, but I think somewhere along the way, she she forgot that because she left a giant hole, you know? Anyways,
Yes. Mhm. Well,
I
that's
don't
what we're
like
trying to
I don't
prevent.
like I don't
But
like
that's my
suicide.
big push. That's my
Yeah,
big push for veterans to go from one place to the next because
that's a
when we have
purpose.
purpose and mission,
It's a purpose.
we're
Mhm.
better. We are
Yeah.
better. I'm not saying
Well,
100% because we're not, but when we have purpose and can get up every day and go to our jobs and take care of our families, we are better off. Period.
I try to
It's
tell
just
people too, you're more than just your paycheck,
oh,
right?
absolutely your
So,
passion. What's your thing you want to do?
yeah, like you're doing this is it's I hate to say hobby, but it's not how you're making your living. And Project Help You Grow is not how I make my living. In fact, I do it all for
Mm-mm.
free. So it
My
doesn't the things that give me purpose don't necessarily equate to paycheck.
well,
And that's
no, this job doesn't exist in the federal government anymore. They actually literally got rid of the series. So when I was just coming downstairs, my husband said I'm going to my personal job.
there you go.
Because that's what this is. This is what I would do all day, every day. And before I was on the call with you, I was on Zoom with another person who is a veteran who's trying to figure out what she's going to do next. That makes me happy. That feeds my soul. I thank God that I have another way to feed my kids and my family and myself. Um, I'm just more grateful for this avenue to have the opportunity to help people. So my goal is to help people. If they want to be helped. I say that because my way is not easy.
Yeah.
What I will show you is not easy to
Project
do.
Help You Grow is not easy either. Yeah, I
It
get
takes
people
some
like that.
time.
They expect the easy button, but it's not. It is a job.
No.
Your job when you don't have a job, your full-time job is to find a job. I mean, it really is an 8-hour Monday through Friday thing. And I teach people, I actually have an article that I wrote. It's a block schedule. And
Hmm.
it's,
Oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
yeah, how to schedule your day
right.
on as a job seeker. Now that may not
Oh,
work.
wait a minute. Oddly enough, this person we're talking about, she had one too. Did you ever see hers? It was beautiful. I wish I could have followed it, but my life wasn't set up that way. But she had a beautiful, exact same thing, but it was just beautiful. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to get emotional.
No,
Uh,
I got.
so,
I have
but
to.
she had one that was just
Yeah.
awesome, and that was actually how we connected because I was like, this is awesome. This had to come out of someone who was very mindful and thoughtful, and anyway, and knew the struggle, you know. But
100%.
anyway, so that last link that I put in the chat box will take us to the OPM website where we can get to some of the stuff. I don't know how long this is for. How many hours are we going here?
We're supposed to be done in 15 minutes. So
Okay, so I'll give them 15 minutes, and if they're interested, if they want to do it, and learn more about it, they can easily just find me. Okay, so classifying. So this is the classifiers. This is our world. We have three things that we use for the most part. It's four altogether, but I'll get to the last one. The first one is well, I start at the bottom. The classifiers handbook. It teaches us how to classify for the most part. Oh no, right there in the middle. The blue link, classifiers handbook, and then we have the introduction to position classification standards, and then we have the handbook of occupational groups and families. Now, when you click on the occupational groups and family, it comes up as a big PDF, and in
yep.
that PDF are literally the jobs in the federal government, the white collar jobs and the blue collar jobs.
Okay.
And so then these are the Office of Personnel Management standards for these jobs. And so then, if you are trying to get a job in the federal government, this is the part you don't see. So, like I said before, this is the book that they create the position description from, and they take the position description and put it out there. You call it the vacancy announcement. And then they add some other stuff to it. And then the vacancy announcement and the questions that they ask, they are derived from this. However, they can get creative with the vacancy announcement a little bit. And so then if you don't know that technically you're actually being, I should say judged, but your career is being determined by this book in the standards that OPM has come up with.
This is the.
Just keep going. We are doing all the obsolete jobs, the jobs that are gone and have been
Okay.
pushed together and all of that. So here we go. So here are the jobs. So the question becomes, which one are you?
Right.
Which job family should you be in? And
So
looking at the titles of the job series, which job should you go for?
we got some more information from Brianna. I don't know if we can
I see it.
piece this all together. It says she has a bachelor's degree in business management. When we looked at the options, my interest in marketing or IT specialist, and we get my foot in the door as an experienced career changer. So my
Yeah.
formal work in college was service industry, but I'm not looking into management. I'm interested in fields that will get me out of my comfort zone. Since I have a career gap, so that's why she's looking for the internship. So anyways, again, I don't know
Right.
that.
But Brianna has decided that she has a career gap.
Right.
What I'm saying is that you don't know that yet because if you haven't looked at these standards for the jobs you're talking about,
You might not.
which have different titles to them, there's no specialist job. Specialist is a designation like assistant. You have specialist, you have manager, you have officer. So you got to learn the system first, and then you'll know whether or not you have a gap. I don't think you have a gap. I think you're just not sure what you want to do.
And
Because
that's true in the civilian world too. A lot of people
right.
say, well, I haven't worked for 3 months or haven't worked for 6 months. I have a gap. No, you don't. A gap in the civilian world for the most part is 2 years. So if you've worked, if your last date of employment is less than 2 years from now, you don't technically have a gap. You don't even have to address it. It's just considered the job search. The standard job search in the civilian world right now, well, pre-COVID-19 was 6 to 7 months. It did depend a little bit on the industry, right? So 6 to 7 month window was the standard career search time. So if you're looking, like 9 months, 10 months, a year, you feel like, well, I've got this career gap, and technically you don't, at least not in my world.
Well, see, you're talking about a time gap. That's what I call it. You're talking about some time off. Like I have 5 years, a gap in my resume when I was home. I was taking care of my dad, but technically I don't have one because I filled it in with all the things that I did. I got 2 degrees, I
Right.
homeschooled my kids, and
Right.
I cared for my dad who had dementia. And so I have all of that in there. But what she's talking about is, as long as I think I'm understanding what she's talking about a skills gap.
Yeah, that could be too.
Meaning that, she has these degrees, she wants to do these things, and the training that she's had so far does not give her the experience she needs to
which
fill
is what.
that gap to get that job. So
Yeah.
in the federal government, you have three things you're dealing with: the skills, knowledge, and abilities. So skills and knowledge can be achieved by, well, college, university training, or you go back and get certificates, or you do some on-the-job training. You go out to, you don't know how to use Excel very well, so you go out to the Goodwill's website and you take their Excel program.
Mhm.
That's a gap filler. So the question becomes, what do you want to do? And then you can determine if you have a gap in this space, what I'm talking about, because
Yeah.
you have to choose a job series, because everything is done and driven by job series. Now, of course, you have transferable skills that will take you over. That's the same example of, I'm an IT person,
Yeah.
but I have some understanding and knowledge of HR, because
Mhm.
you can go out on LinkedIn and take a class in HR.
Right.
And again, skills and knowledge, but the ability part is all about experience. But what you'll see when you're reading the vacancy announcements is they get into and or
Hmm.
and or and or. So you got to find where you fit in the or. And so you may think you need a degree for something, and a lot of times you do not, because again, what I'm saying to you is, the other three kinds of jobs outside of the professional realm, most of the time, there is not a degree required. If it is, they will state that in the vacancy announcement, but that is for that job and that agency at that moment. That's not across the board. What's going to be across the board is these standards that we're looking at, because every classifier, whether you're in the military, that's, DoD world, the Army is the best place to learn classification. I know. That's where I learned it. No,
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 get all these other get all these other
I know that's terrible, but no,
Come on.
it really comes down to who turns to the Marines to learn how to classify. The website that everyone uses as a standard for classification is the Army's website, Fast Class. Everybody goes there. So I'm not. I'm saying that to say that, well, we really are the best. That's why everyone uses our information. That's why they can teach me how to do classification in 1992, and I still know how to do it. Because the other part of that is the classification doesn't change. It's
Yeah.
the same across the board, no matter what agency, whatever job you're going for, it usually falls in here some way, shape, or form. And so then, as long as you understand the job series that you're going for, then you can make a determination whether or not you have a gap, or you're not qualified, or whether you're qualified at the 12 versus a 7. So that's what this is about. So even if you go back to the website, so the book you want to use is the Handbook of Occupational Groups and Families, but this website is good. Go back to one for OPM that says classifying white collar positions.
Where was that at?
It's the one,
Mhm. This
no,
it?
the top right.
Mm-hmm.
Saying the top right, like the next one over. I think the window is open, isn't it open?
Is it this
But
one?
anyway, go to the, okay, no, that's the book. So go back to where you were. Now, over on the left, where it says classification and qualifications on the tab on the left, come down and go all the way to the left, right under the
Oh,
symbol
yeah,
for
yeah.
OPM.
Classification.
Did you click on something? You must have clicked on something. You did. Okay. So look, go back to opm.gov, click on the little symbol there. Okay. Well, gosh, what's going on? It's not there now. Okay, go back up.
They move stuff around on us.
Well, you could go back to the link I sent you, but it's probably going to be under policy. Okay, the class right there on the left, right there.
Got it.
Okay, so on the left, go down to where it says classifying general service, the second one down. No, go back up right there. Yep,
Yeah.
click that one. Okay, classifying white collar positions. So there's 3 tabs on this site that you can use right now, along with the book, but it's just easier to use this method first. And so it explains about classification there, and those are the documents that we use. Now go to the second tab where it says standards.
Okay.
And the standards tab will break down. You'll see the first thing you will see with these links is going to be the job families in the groups.
Gotcha.
So then if
Sergeant.
you're a teacher and you're into training, you're in the education group. So if you're into HR, you're in the 200 group. So this is to get you started. Everyone needs to start somewhere. So there's 2 group families that everyone should look at. That's 0000, the one at the top, miscellaneous occupations group, because literally it's in there where they couldn't fit it anywhere else. They just threw it up there.
Gotcha.
And then the second one everyone should look at is 0300. So the 0300 is the General Administrative Clerical and Office Services Group. And so people think secretary. And yes, the secretaries are in there. But on top of the secretaries, you have some of the higher level, what we call administrative management positions in the federal government.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, just if you want to, guys want to write these numbers down, the Program Management Series, which is 0340. The Administrative Officer Series 0341, 0343, which is the Management and Program Analysis Series, and then 0343, I'm sorry, 0346, which is the Logistics Management Series. Now, what you need to know is what you normally think is the job may not be the job in the federal government. That's another reason why you need the standard, because the first, at the very top, when you open up a standard, they have the definition of a standard of what the job is.
I'm going to click in one. Let's click on this logistics management series just so people can see it.
So if you've done logistics out in the military, or you've done logistics, in the military or out in the civilian world, your idea of what logistics is broader and bigger than what they have it being in the federal government. Really, the logistics job, it breaks down into 6 different job series. And that's mainly because, people in the outside of the federal government, they shove jobs together and say, oh, let them do that and let them do that. But in this space, if you want to do the contract part of logistics, that's called a contract specialist. If you want to do the procurement part, well, that's called a procurement. You get the idea. If you do the transportation part of logistics, then you need to be a transportation specialist. So that's when people come to me. They've already figured it out, but they need more job series, or they need an explanation for something to move to the next step. So that's where I come in, because I have all this stuff in my head to share. so
you are a database that we need to plug into.
So the first part of it, when you look at that logistics standard, I should start by saying, when you click on things, you're either going to get a fly sheet or a standard. In this case, this is logistics, and it's a fly sheet. It tells you up at the top, position classification fly sheet for logistics management series. So you'll get a standard, which has everything in it, or you get a fly sheet, which has, a few pages. And even though it's 15 pages, that's still a few pages. But right. Notice the date at the top right.
Yeah, 1987.
1987. So what's not going to be in there is Excel and PowerPoint and all those things that we use now. But this is the heart of the job. So then when you click on it, you go to series definition, they tell you exactly what the job is. And what you will find missing is transportation and all those other things that I just mentioned. And so they're telling you this is straight logistics. That's all you're doing. And then when you scroll down, they tell you the area of coverage, the series, what it covers under this particular one. And then when you scroll down more, it starts to break some things out for you. Some logistics work include responsibility. So now they get into detail. So now they offer you yet another link. So these are all clues about how these jobs are woven together, and you use the standard to go to that standard. And then they have the exclusions. So what exclusions are is that these jobs are so similar that they're telling you this is not that. But it also means under exclusions, these are some more jobs that you will probably qualify for. If you qualify for logistics jobs, you will probably work fine in these others. They're just distinguishing between the jobs.
So if you're trying to figure out where you would fit, what government roles are even available to you with your qualifications, find something in here, just gravitate to one, and then you can start going through these and find more.
Exactly, because with transferable skills, it's very obvious. Some of them are obvious, but you have to think a little deeper. And what I found is that people don't know what transferable skills are. Yeah. And so then people say, well, I am, I'm very friendly. That's not a transferable skill. I mean, that's the way you are. Okay, that's wonderful. That'll get you. But I'm talking about and I actually give people a list because I understand that it's hard to distinguish.
Yeah, so like typing 60 words a minute, for example, there's a transferable skill, right? You can use that in all kinds of ways.
Not much anymore. but yes. But so I use the big ones that are used in administration, that are used in what we call professional jobs. And so then I have a sheet that I give everyone. I'm looking at it now. Sorry, I didn't share.
Okay.
I tried to drop some things in there that didn't go. So what I'm looking at is a sheet that says transferable skills, and basically it lists communication skills. It has a list: speaking effectively, writing clearly and concisely. I mean, these are transferable skills. Research, planning, and investigation. Human relations, interpersonal. So, they have to like being patient, being willing to take risks, teaching, instructing others, things like that. Doesn't say friendly. Friendly's not on there.
Yeah.
Work survival. Now, work survival is wonderful. Meeting goals, managing time and stress, taking initiative in job related duties. These are things that you can easily incorporate into a resume.
Yeah.
Organizational management, leadership, and decision making. That's a big one. Facilitating brainstorming activities. Have you ever done that? Is it on your resume? Nope. Giving praise and credit to others for a job well done. Nope. Most people don't have that on there either.
So
So what I'm go
this,
ahead.
this is one of the huge differences between civilian positions and
Mhm.
government positions. And I want to talk about this, and it's probably what we're going to have to wrap up on. But
Mhm.
the resume, unless you're going for a C level, director, VP, for sure, VP and C level jobs,
Mhm.
you pretty much, if you have 10 years or more of experience, you want to stick to a 2-page resume, which means you have to have an editor's scissors and cut all this stuff out, because you don't want to have that. You will not get selected if you have too much information. They're just not going to read it. In the government, I know that's 100% the opposite is true. You could have like a 50-page resume. You got to cover you have to read the job description, and you have to cover every bullet point has to be addressed. There's no inference like, oh, I know they can do this because
Um,
of that,
yeah,
right? You have to
right.
address it. In the civilian world, it's the 100% the opposite. Like, for example, I'm telling most of my clients, if you have a bachelor's degree, you don't need to show your high school diploma, because it's inferred that you have it, or you have your GED equivalent, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
so space being brief, brevity is valuable on a civilian resume. But the government resume is more like a CV. For my international audience, the CVs are much more detailed.
No,
The
it's worse than a CV.
Right. No, it
It's
is.
worse than that.
It's a long form CV. The most people fail, civilian workforce fail trying to apply for government jobs if they're not trained on this point. And it's why I want to highlight it. And we're going to end their show with it. But if you could just talk about that, the resume and how they need
So,
to write it, because people are used to these 1 and 2 page resumes. Like I said, 10 years, 2-page max. For a lot of people that are under 10 years experience, I'm recommending they use a 1-page form. Uh,
mhm.
and if you do that on a government job, you have no shot, right? I mean, no shot.
Very rarely, very rarely. So the goal behind the federal resume, and number one, throw out every template that anyone has ever given you. Stop looking for templates.
Right? Come on.
Do not touch a template. This is like my pet peeve. If 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 the federal government
This is where
looked at you and
lazy
say,
people hate
say
hate
again,
the lazy people hate to hear this, because they just want to
right?
drop it in my information and hit send.
Well, I know the idea is that lazy people work in the federal government, but the reality is for that person to get there, honestly, no, they worked hard to get there, and they already have the skills to qualify them for the job, so they're doing a good job. Most of federal employees are not lazy and they are not rude. Now they are stressed out at times. They are in some ways underpaid, and part of it is their own fault because they don't move. Everyone gets miserable when they're in a miserable job
Hmm.
eventually. And
Yep.
if you don't know the way out, you get even more trapped like an animal. So the deal with the federal resume is this. First of all, if USA Jobs took the time and money and energy to redo the website and redo the resume, they've made very significant changes to it about 8 years ago. Then you should use that as a clue. When you say I'm going to file my taxes with the IRS, you don't say I'm going to make up my own template. You don't do that. You get your 1040, you get your information in those boxes where they tell you to put it.
Yep.
I want everyone to think about USA Jobs Resume Builder the exact same way. Why? First of all, they do tell you it's optional because they can't force anybody to use that. That is an undue hardship. That's this hardship on people to say you must use it. But I don't care. I'm saying it because I don't work at OPM. And I just work for me. So um, OPM has put that website together in such a way to help you prove your qualifications. So when you don't use it, you're missing out on pieces of information that they need to help you prove your qualifications and get the points. So what do I mean? One little thing, when they ask you how many hours of work a week is that job. So you say 35 hours, 40 hours, whatever it is. They can do a calculation to determine your qualifications for one item because you did it 40 hours a week for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't tell them that, sorry. Same thing with school. The reason why I tell everyone to write out all their classes is because it says relevant courses. We don't know what relevant courses are going to be. We don't know, depending on the job. We don't know. One of the things they ask you for is the hours that it took up or that you used to get that degree. They want to know whether it's quarter or semester. That's because, again, they can do a little calculation for you and help you get points. If you read through some of the vacancy announcements, it'll say, okay, you don't have to have the degree and have finished it, but we need you to have at least 24 semester hours in whatever this thing is. So if you never tell them that it's quarter to a semester, why should we have to go out and figure it out?
Right.
So the bottom line is this: don't be lazy because you won't get in.
100%.
You won't get in. Give them the information that they need. You do the work so that you are getting the job. It's as simple as that. Because they get 300 and 500 resumes at a time for one job, and that's not the only job they're responsible for. Imagine. So make it easier on yourself and them and give them the information. So when you fill in the information, you need to be detailed. You need to tell us what you did. Our rule is make no assumptions. We can make no assumptions that because you have a master's degree that you know how to write. If you don't indicate somewhere in there in your resume that you wrote something, a standard operating procedure, you wrote a paper, how about just upload? They have a publication section. Upload the information about your publications. So if you don't follow their system and what they have there written out, you'll miss huge blocks of information like job related training. Job related training is anything that you didn't do in a college or university setting. It still counts. You won't know to put in your volunteer work. Even if you're doing, Habitat for Humanity one day, that's okay. Put it in there. It speaks to. So what you're doing is proving your qualifications. You're showing them where you got the knowledge and skills and abilities from. So that's why they don't care if you take up 20 pages for it, because they understand that most people don't meet the qualifications for one job in one day or on one job. It's
Right.
usually over a career.
A lifetime. Yeah.
And so if you don't have that in there, or if you lie and put it somewhere else, they're going to know you lied, which means you lied on a federal application.
Not good.
You're out the mix. That's
Right.
easy. They just put you to the side. The next thing is people don't fill out their paperwork correctly.
Mm.
If the paperwork is not filled out correctly, or you failed to add the required documents, which is an official section, then your packet is incomplete. You already go to the side.
And you're
Let's
looking,
say,
you're looking competent, by the way, right?
say
So
again,
you're looking competent. If you filling out the
Mhm.
forms incorrectly or you're missing data, it makes you look like you're not competent for the.
well, a competent means that someone has a personal idea of who you should be. We're going through the process. We don't care who you are. We don't care. We're all about your documents. We don't make any assumptions about you at all. We don't care about things like that. We just care about the document, and are you telling me what I need to know to
Yeah.
justify giving you the points that I'm giving you? Because you got to understand, we have a whole form that we have to fill out and sign, and then we have to prove behind there all these documents are how we came up with these points. So if you never give us any content, that's why you don't make it.
You
The
get
other
no.
thing is, go ahead.
You get no points, right?
So specialized, how can we give it to you? So
Right.
specialized experience is a big section usually on most of the vacancy announcements. People skip over it. If you don't have the specialized experience, you don't get in. Then they get to the questions and they say they're an expert at everything. The problem is you say you're an expert, we can't even find where you did it one time on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Got
you're
it.
an expert at something, that means that we can see some growth in there. We can see you took some classes because the classes would be there under the job related section, right? Job related training section, it would be there. We would look for it. We would look there. We would look at your experiences and we'll see where you sat on a reference desk. We would see where you did the train the trainer event. We will see that you did all these things that prove that you are the expert and everybody comes to you for this information. So when we don't see that, you don't get enough points. You're out of the mix right there. That's you're done.
Do you have
So
an estimate, time estimate?
mhm,
How much time in general, I know this is going to vary depending on each job, but how much time do you think it would take a person to properly go through and fill out an application for a position in the government?
I tell people to plan for 5 hours.
Okay. So
Now, if you and this
this
is why is because the way I show you how to do it, you have to go through a few documents to pull out what you've done. If you're going to be a supervisor in the federal government, or if you've ever been a supervisor in your whole lifetime, then you have to identify those skills on there. But you don't know what it takes to be a supervisor in the federal government. So you need to go to that guide, which by the way is on the third tab. They call functional guides. They're on the third tab. That's why I give the website because it's just easier. The
right.
functional guides, you go to the one that says supervisor, you read through it and pull out everything that you've done as a supervisor that's in there and identify it on the resume where you did it. It's just that simple. So with the method that I use, if you're starting from scratch, you don't have a USA Jobs resume, the first thing that you do is copy and paste the resumes that you have. Put all that content back. Now, how many resumes do you have in the federal government? One. One doggone resume. Unless they tell you something different in the vacancy announcement, like NASA, they only want 2 pages because they just want to know you have the education,
Yeah.
that you have the capacity to do what they're doing there. So that's different. But for the most part, uh, nobody cares. They understand that you're trying to prove your qualifications. So whatever you have to do that, that's what you're doing. They get that. So they don't have a problem with that. We don't care how long it is. We just need some content. Can you give us the content to prove your qualifications? So that's why you need to know your job series, all of them. But you start with one and you open it up and you read through it. And then you'll see some other things there, which will lead you to some other places. And then you can do your research and find out if you like those job series because all the information is there. And so if you like the job series and you have qualifications in it, you pull that information and put it on your resume where you have it. That's why I don't say create a federal, I call it building a
Build,
federal
build it.
resume
Yeah.
because you have the same jobs. The jobs don't move and you don't take anything out. You're constantly adding to it. For example, I did libraries for a long time, so I can qualify for a GS-14 job easily. I don't want to do that again. I've been there, done that. Don't want to do that. So there's other jobs that I've had, different job series that I've just used my transferable skills for. So I
Would
don't
you
move
use
anything
the
off.
same, would you use the same
Uh-huh.
resume? Would you use the same resume for that? Like if you had the person, let's say, I think her name was Ruth, right? Where she had done HR stuff and she was
Mhm.
interested in doing criminal investigation.
Well,
Would
it's
she
odd you should say that because I
say,
have both of those jobs. They're both on my resume.
there you go. But would she use the same resume?
It's only one resume.
Okay. So yeah.
We're not doing 4011 resumes and
Yeah.
tweaking and
And
targeting and
that's
all
so
the
much
stuff that you
different.
do.
That's so much different than what we do because of
Right.
the 2-page limitation is
Well, I'm
really
gonna tell you,
what does that.
I'm different. Everything I'm telling you is what I know works.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to USA Jobs training, I don't know what they're going to tell you. I've
Yeah.
sat through many of those, totally frustrated, and I take over their chat box because not only are they giving the wrong information about HR principles in the federal government, but they're telling people silly things like you need to make 3 and 4. Yes, the system allows you to have 6 different resumes, I believe. But as soon as you remove information from your resume, that means that that's not represented on your resume.
Yeah.
So you don't know all the qualifications. You know what's on the vacancy announcement, you know what they're asking you in the questions, and now you will know what's going on in the standard. But even still, there's still things you don't know that
So
they don't tell you. It's not written anywhere.
in the civilian world, we have an expression or a term called master resume.
Hmm.
And so what we do, we build, or what we teach people to do, because I don't need one. I own my own company now. But
I
you
have one.
you build a master resume, and it's usually something like 10, 12, 15 pages. So
Right.
kind of like what you would have probably for a government
Well,
resume.
I have both because I did corporate before all of this. But yes,
So
I have a master resume that has every job I ever did on it.
yeah, it has
The
everything on it. And then what
salary,
you do
the
is
supervisor, everything.
yeah, and
And
then
that's what
you strip it out. You strip out all the stuff that you don't
no,
think is relevant
no,
for the
no.
civilian job that you're applying for because you got to get it down to 2 pages. And then
Well,
we have to keyword match for the
Well, we
ATS.
have the keyword match too. It's just done
Yeah,
differently. It's not doing it for a computer. It's just that you don't just put Excel down. So what? You need to tell us how you use Excel. What level do you use Excel? Did you make the birthday list for the office where you use 3 columns and put some data entry in there?
right,
Or
right.
are you able to do a pivot table? Can you use the filter? What can you do with it? You need to tell us and how
Yeah.
you use it. So it would go
So
something like this.
some of these
Uh,
ATS programs are getting smarter because we talked about the points earlier. They'll
mhm,
keyword match based on section. It's not
mhm,
quite as smart as what you're talking about with pivot tables. If they're looking for the word Excel and you don't use Excel, then you're out. But they
right.
will. They're getting smarter. The artificial intelligence is getting smarter. It's like, okay, well, it's in the professional experience section or summary. They'll give you different points than if it's in your like extra skills, technical skills. You might have Excel written.
Mhm.
You're going to get a different point value based on where it is. Now that's not true with all ATS programs, which is
Mhm.
part of the pain in
It,
the
it's too much. I'm already done. If I ever go back to the private sector, it'll be because I have decided, okay, this is what I want, and I will find the people to help me get there.
yeah.
I think that to be, what's the right word? um, I used to be a shark. That's how I could work in the very competitive Big Four accounting firm that I worked in. That was fine. Um, I'm a little different now, but I have no problem asking for what I need or what someone else will need. There are people that I get it. They're not at that point. So I would gladly go in for them. I will go in deep for them. I will find the person, tell them all about them, give them their resume, and say, this is the person you need to hire. I have no problem doing that. At some point, we all have to have some confidence in our skills, in our
100%.
abilities. Not
100%.
only does that affect us because we don't go out, we're like a mouse. Oh, I have these things, but I'm not sure. When you're confident about who you are and what you do, and that's the problem. We don't ask for what we want. I won't get biblical, but you know what they say.
Mm,
You know what it says. We have not because we ask not.
right.
So when it is that you have degrees, but you're still not sure what you want to do, you need to find what that thing is. And once you find that thing, go for it in every way, shape, or form. You get
Well,
on LinkedIn, you contact people. You find it if you want to be doing it in the federal space, you find that job in the information I just gave you, and you go through the details of it and you pull out that information. By the time you finish, you'll know whether or not you're qualified for the job. And if
I
you have gaps, there's so many places to fill the gaps.
100%. I like in the job market in the civilian world to
Mm-hmm.
date. You want to date somebody that's confident, not timid or insecure, right? So
Yeah.
if you enter the interview without that confidence,
Right.
without what I mean,
Well,
you're
that's
not
why I like
gonna,
people to do it
you're not
themselves.
nearly as likely to land the job because people want people that are in demand, that are
Mhm.
confident, that they're not going to have to be
Coach
yeah,
and yeah.
sensitive. You know what I mean? Like I'm bringing in drama because this person is already insecure. I don't need that.
No.
Usually, those are
So
the ones.
that's why I have people to do it themselves because by the time you look at yourself, you see the skills you're bringing to the table. You
Yep.
have identified your transferable skills. You have your degree, you have your classes in there. Your confidence begins to build because eventually, if you use my system, you will get an interview. I know nobody ever says that, but I can say that because I know it
Right.
works.
I
But
tell
that's
people
just
that
if
too.
you do it because
Yeah.
people like to do half of it and say, "Oh, hope it didn't work out." I said, "You didn't finish the checklist, did you?"
Yep.
Because
Well,
if we choose the right job series and you qualified in the job series, all you have to do is communicate that.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you go through the process, you communicate that, That's all you need to do, because then it's faster. So when you talk about how long, people always say, well, how long is it going to take to get a government job? In a way, it's up to you. If you spend the time preparing ahead of time, that
Hmm.
means you're not doing a shotgun approach where you're applying for 50 jobs,
Right.
different job series. No, you've narrowed it down. You know exactly where you are. That
Yep.
means your document is prepared.
Yep.
You're ready to go. It
Yep.
also means that you can communicate on the interview the things that you've done, because now you remember, because you went all the way back to when you were in high school and put that job on there too. That is how I got one of my jobs in the federal
Nice.
government. It's because I had Burger King on my job resume.
A really nice part about doing it that way,
Mhm,
have one resume with everything on it, is you
mhm,
don't have to remember what you said on that resume. Like there is a whole strategy that I have for people to remember what resume they used
mhm,
for that particular job, to
mhm.
read it before they go back in for that interview. But your way is nice because
You
you
know who you are
yeah,
because it's all in one place, and
yeah.
you can see that you have a way of seeing your own career progression. You can
Mhm.
see where you were and where you are, and hopefully it takes you to where you want to be. And so as long as you have that confidence, I'm not sitting here saying all of this the way I am just to say it. I know, because I'm not misleading anyone. I'm
Right.
not deceiving anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get any money from anyone.
And it's not
I'm
magic.
just trying to, right.
It's
I'm just
not
trying to
magic.
help you.
It's not too good to be true because it isn't. It isn't necessarily too good because you're.
No, no. I mean, the benefits are there on the other side. But
Yes.
what the first thing you need to know is this is a labor intensive
Yeah.
process. To bring you on board in the federal government, it takes a lot of people doing a lot of things to get it going. It takes a lot of people to go through resumes and do interviews, and someone to make a decision who decides to pay you. But the big thing you need to know is if one of those people drops out because they're sick, they have COVID, their parent is dying, whatever the thing is, it
Right.
slows down the process. Yes. So that's what takes so long. The other thing is people are waiting to find out if they're qualified. They didn't get any notice. I didn't hear anything back. So then if you didn't hear anything back, this is what you should know. And it was easier to say this before COVID, but if you didn't hear anything back, that means that you're not in the highly qualified or well qualified category usually, which means you didn't go further. You didn't go any, that was it. You
Yeah.
submitted, they went through, you said you were an expert, they couldn't find it, so they just put you to the side.
Yep.
So then they went ahead with the people who were well qualified and highly qualified. They went through there, they took them through the standards, and then they passed them on to the hiring authority. And then the hiring authority decided who they wanted to interview. They went through the interview process, but see, you were left behind back there. So
Yeah.
the notice that you get from the system is after they've hired the person and closed out the certificate, and then the system will send out an email to everyone. Now, in the middle of that, maybe you get an email that says, we have found you to be tentatively eligible for the position according to what you rated yourself. Those are called self-rating questions. So you said you were an expert. They took you at your word, so they sent you that email. But then after that, when they went to try and prove that you were an expert, they
Mm.
found nothing to support it.
So
So
that's where
then after that, right, maybe you'll get an email that says, "Sorry, we found that you weren't qualified."
in
It
the
just
civ-
depends on.
yeah
Go ahead.
in the civilian world, you're not going to get anything if you just submit your application. You talked about the shotgun approach, which is an epidemic in the civilian world where people are trying to do 20 resumes a day or 50 job submissions a day, which means they're not going to get interviewed by any of them because no keyword matching is frankly the issue. But if you don't get the interview, if you don't make the interview round, most systems won't even acknowledge you. Like there's just no acknowledgement that happens. So you're not going to, people say, oh, I was ghosted by this company or that company. You weren't really ghosted. You didn't even qualify for the interview round. Once you get to the interview round in the civilian world, you can expect a follow-up email or phone call from somebody. And if you don't
Right.
get one, then you have technically been ghosted at that point. So that's, not hearing back from somebody. A lot of
Oh,
people are bitter at companies, but they don't realize on the other end, and I don't know if it's like this in the government world, but most of these private jobs, they're receiving not hundreds, but thousands of applications, submissions. They are
mhm.
overwhelmed. It's epidemic proportions because of the number of unemployment. So to expect them to respond to every single one is not realistic. You really have to
Well,
you have to be qualified enough to be that top, whatever the cut. Remember, I talked about it, the cut line. They're going to do 50, they're going to do 100. Those people will get usually a notification. Well, first of all, they're going to get the notification, obviously, that they're going to be interviewed. But then if they don't make it to the next round of interviews, because usually there's 2 or 3 rounds at least, then you'll get some type of, hey, we decided to go in a different direction. It's usually a standard form. It's not like, because
Right.
we couldn't determine you were an expert in Excel or whatever, to that.
We went the other way or
Yeah,
another way.
that's
Well,
that's all they pretty much
but
say.
but
That's all.
it's this thing with the public that they feel as if I apply for a federal job, why haven't I heard anything? Like they're owed an explanation as to what's going on with the job. And I understand that because it's frustrating.
That's
How
a
many
great.
thousands of jobs did I apply for? I get that. But you got to understand, again, labor intensive process.
Yeah.
They get anywhere from 400 and 500 resumes for one job that they got to go through.
Right.
And so then, and you didn't take the time to do your resume to prove that you were qualified either, but you took your 2-page resume from the outside world, uploaded it and said, take this.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
didn't make it. You
I'm a
just did not make
I'm a
it.
superstar. You should be able to fill in the blanks, right? I mean, that's the problem, and that's why I asked you that question earlier about how much time should they reasonably expect to fill out, an application.
yeah.
They know it's 5 hours.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about my process. An
Oh,
application won't take that long, especially once you know who you are. You can answer the questions without copying and pasting in OPM because you don't understand something.
well,
Once you know your job
filter is gonna
series,
take a long time, right? But then
say
after
again,
so the first build out will take you a long time because you're
in
building.
terms of redoing your resume,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the 5 hours that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
If you give it 5 hours and you take your time and work through it strategically, you will be fine. By the time you finish, if you really qualify for that job series, you would have had the opportunity because you use the standard like a menu. Did I ever do that? Did I ever do that? Did I ever do that?
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, yeah, I did do that. Okay, well, go back, put it in there where you did it. Now tell us how you did it, who you did it for, and what level you did it at.
Yeah.
The details of it. And so then it does take more time to get all that stuff out of you. And
Yeah.
that's why I have them use the standard as the trigger because the standard is what you're being judged by. In each one of the standards, when you look at it, what you will find is that there are 9 factors in there. The factors is where the points come from. So if you don't qualify under the factors and they have different levels, you'll see this once you go in, they have different levels for each thing. And so then if you don't, we can't give you like half a point. It
It's
has to be the whole thing.
Yeah.
Either you're getting the 540 points or you're getting 1150 points. That's it. It's not one or the other. So you may have a gap. You may look at this and say, I have that, I have that, I have that, but I don't have that. Maybe I can create a volunteer situation for myself at some nonprofit to get that.
That's
Or maybe I need to go to LinkedIn and maybe I need to find me a class on that and do the whole thing, not the first module, because they do micro learning. So people say, well, I did the training, but you didn't finish it. Finish it, get the knowledge, be an expert at things.
With the certs, does the LinkedIn certs help you? So, like, for example, WordPress is a skill that you can say, oh, I have WordPress, but that's self-identifying. But then I didn't take the class, I took the test from LinkedIn and I passed the WordPress skill. So I have that on my LinkedIn,
So you test it out.
I tested it.
But that's considered job-related training. There's a whole section for it. It's a whole field. If you look at mine, it looks like this. I have all the training I ever did in the federal government, which is a lot because I like training, but I have it organized because there are human beings that's trying to get to 300, 400 resumes. Make it easy on them. Put all the HR stuff with the HR stuff.
Yeah, group it.
It's basic. Put the finance stuff with all the finance stuff.
Yeah.
Make it organized. I know we want to do everything in chronological order. You still can do it in chronological order. You just put a header that says HR. And then that way they know if they need some points for you in HR to go to that section.
You made it
it's
easy.
simple.
Yeah, you made it easy.
Because you want them to get it and go and get it and go. You want them because they got to justify it. They have several people who have to sign off on their work. So if you don't give them the content, you don't get the job. This is the way it is. The federal government is not some place where you can get in and say, oh, I just want to learn. I'm here. I'm a good learner. No, you got to have the skills before you get there.
Yeah.
And when they don't have the skills,
no bridge jobs in the government then.
They're called internships.
Yeah, there you go.
But you have to, be a student. Remember, be a student. But high school was listed, right?
Yeah.
High school was listed. Trade was listed. So what I tell people is simply this. Okay. So you need to figure out where you want to go and where you want to be, and then you backtrack it. What do I need to be there? What are the qualifications I need to meet? Do I need to
Start,
find some program?
start with the goal and then follow the yellow brick road in reverse, right?
Objectives and tasks.
Yeah.
Objectives and tasks. It's just that simple. If you want to be, what was it, investigator researcher? Okay, so then
Criminal
that's
investigator. Mhm.
right. That's the 1800 series. Go to the 1800 series, look at the requirements for that job, and determine whether or not you're up for the task to go and do the work to become that.
Yeah.
Look at the agencies that have that, because everyone doesn't have that. But you know what they all have? They use pretty much the same skills, it's just different. And that locking up criminals, or they are, depending on how you look at it, is auditors. The auditors in the federal government
Oh,
use
they're
a
getting
lot
in hot water with everybody who isn't in the army and
of.
everybody who is an auditor. You
Well,
can-
OIG, the Office of Inspector General, every department, every department and agency under it has one. So there are places that she can actually use her HR experience and
yeah.
have practically the same experience. It's just thinking about it and putting the two together. Because the last thing she wants to do, I'm guessing, is start at the bottom. Start with kids who are finishing up their criminal justice degree.
Yeah, I'm thinking
It's different.
with 35 years of professional experience in anything, I'm assuming they don't want to start at entry level.
Right. But what she can do is she can audit every document that come out the HR department. She can audit the certificate to be sure that everyone was treated fairly, to make
Yeah.
sure all the veterans were
Yeah.
taken into consideration, to make
That's
sure all the people with disabilities were taken into consideration, to make sure that all the people who were in the well qualified or highly qualified category had a chance, had an opportunity to actually come in and interview, or were they put to the side and someone else snuck in another resume? I mean, she can do that. That's
What is,
using investigative techniques.
what is the average job search length of time in the government? So let's say I start today because I don't have a resume in USA
Right.
Job. So let's say I start today. Is there like a 6 month or 9 month, or is there a standard, like it's going to take X amount of time on average to find a
What
job?
did you say? What did you say earlier? If you don't have a job, then your job is
right, to
looking
find
for a job.
100%.
So I understand people are working and they're going to school. But if you don't have a federal job and you want a federal job, you're going to have to do the work to get a federal job. I mean, anybody can go and apply, but I mean, to actually do the
To
work,
land it, right? To
to
land
find out the job series. So
Yeah.
I deal with people all the time. I'm thinking about one person who's in transition. He's in a different country. He's transitioning. He had applied for a lot of federal jobs. He never got one response back. He came to so many of my classes. It was like we were spending quality time together. Like he was there for every time. There he is. He listened. He went through the checklist. He took the documents that I provided him with. He read through. If he had a question, he sent me a message in LinkedIn. The first time he applied for a job in the federal government with the new resume with everything detailed,
Yeah.
automatically qualified.
There you go.
GS 14 off the street.
Come on.
So if you do the work up front, not only will it's better for you because you can communicate everything about who you are and what you do, and it builds up your confidence, but it also means that you're hitting the target.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have to wait 3 months to hear from them because they already told him up front that he's qualified. Because of course, that's the first part they do, is to find the people that are qualified, so they get notices first. So when you qualify, you hear something back pretty soon after the job closes. And if you don't, you wait 2 weeks and you contact them, send the email. You need to have the announcement number in the subject line and ask them, well, what's going on with, because sometimes it's delayed. When COVID hit, people still did not know how they were going to bring people on board. How are we going to do onboarding or orientation when everyone's working from home? So everyone has had to take a minute to kind of rethink it, redo it, and put it back together again so that, how can 8 join? I'm not sure what that means.
I think you meant I, not 8.
Oh, how can you join the military?
We talked about, I think we're talking about your class. So
the class. Okay.
yeah, let me pull this back up. So for y'all who missed this, because we've been on now for 2.5 hours, Hope, we are in overtime.
But I
Uh,
told you I went from 6 to 10:30 last night.
so
If
here
they
we
stay, I stay. That's how I do it.
so here we go. So you would come to Hope White's profile, and then here's the list of courses that she has. So let's see, it's November. So the next one is this one, yeah? Building a federal resume. 11/18, that's in 4 days. At 6 p.m. These are Eastern times. So for me, it would be 3 o'clock. And I'm going to tell you what, I think I'm going to join that class myself. So I'm fascinated to learn more from you. So
there's more classes outside of that. Like since you're on the show, I would consider you be a person who's sharing information with other people. So I just did last week, I think it was last week, a train the trainer event where I had a bunch of people who this is their job. They do transition and they work with veterans of some kind. I think we have one person on there who deals with college age students. The whole point is it's a little different when I talk to them.
yeah.
But the information in the end is the same.
Yeah. So for
It's
me,
the same.
I'm a nerd. That's my nice way of saying I like to study too. So I love learning about all this because it does help me give them. I don't want to give people
I
bad.
love sharing. I love
Yeah,
sharing.
I don't want to give people bad information. I'm sure you can appreciate
Uh-huh.
that. It's like if you're gonna be the trusted advisor, then you need to make sure the information you're giving is accurate. And you know,
Yes.
so I'm all about it. And because I'm self-employed, I can make my own schedule. So to be on something at like a Thursday at 3 o'clock is not a big deal for me. So I'm gonna spend some time with you for sure. Let's do this. We're gonna wrap this show up because we are well past overtime. But I want to give you, like I did at the beginning, a couple minutes just to kind of maybe like wrap it up, give people some pointers on what their next steps should be.
Okay.
We know that they can find you on LinkedIn. I'm going to copy your profile link again because I did that at the beginning of the show, but I'm going to do it again and drop it in the comments. So my advice to everybody watching is connect with Hope on LinkedIn because you can get, the courses from her. You can ask her questions when appropriate. You can follow up her updates and any, posts that she puts out because this is a whole other world that I really don't know. I mean, just this much about is all I know. You know what I mean? I'm pretty good when it comes to the civilian world. And if I'm not, I can point you right to where to get the information that you need. But with the government agencies, especially with USA Jobs, I am a not even a neophyte. Like I don't know. I don't spend any time there. So I'm going to learn. I'm going to build my knowledge base because I'm fascinated by it now. You have piqued my curiosity, is what I'm telling you, Hope. So thank you for being on the show. Oh my goodness. And sharing 2.5 hours of your knowledge with us is a blessing. And I know that I like Hope a lot. We have a lot in common. So I'm going to be
more than you know. Like we should talk. Like we would drink coffee together. Well, I don't drink coffee. I drink tea, but
Well, I have other shows that are going to be more.
Oh.
I'm going to bring you on some of the other stuff for more of the not I said not serious stuff, but the jovial stuff. We'll get into your background a little bit, and I'll tease you, and you can tease me, and anyways, we'll have some fun. But yeah, if you could, just 2-3 minutes, just kind of wrap this thing up for people who want to learn more. You've got them. I think Brianna. Oh my goodness, come on, girl! You need to connect with Hope because she's got all kinds. She's got all kinds of questions for you, and she did say, I love her. She was active the whole time. I can see her enthusiasm, and she's respectful, which is, a lost trait as well for whatever reason. So, anyways.
Yeah. So this is what I would say to people. Number one, throw out the templates. Use the resume builder and fill in all of the fields that they give you. There's two that I tell you don't fill in. Number one, don't fill in the salary because that's none of their business, and people make decisions for you when you add information like that. Number two, if you have received a 3.0 or higher, put that grade on there. But if not, you don't have to. It's optional. And I say that because there's a hiring authority that they can use to hire you. It's called Superior Academic Achiever. They can bring you in on board with just that little GPA number. So fill that in.
My 3.917 would help me out, huh?
Is super. There you go. People get hired like that all the time. When they find someone who's willing to do the work to achieve that level, then why wouldn't they want them? That's
Yeah.
a person who didn't just go to class and show up. They pursued, they mastered some things. I'm all about mastering things. When I take little classes, I will take it 20 times to get the 100. And it's not about the 100, it's about, okay, now I know I've mastered it.
Yeah.
So you want to do that. You want to fill in each section in that resume,
Mhm.
and you want to take the time on the website you were provided and using the handbook of occupational groups and families and find your job. Once you find that job, you use the vacancy announcement, the questions, and of course the standard to determine your qualifications within yourself. That means when you go out there and you look at a vacancy announcement, look at the questions. There's a link. You click on the questions, read the questions before you start the process, because you may look at the questions and say, "Oh, I'm maybe." And if you're doing that, just understand there's about 300 other people who are not doing that. They
Right.
really are the
They've,
expert.
they've got it all
So
down.
so you have to find the thing that you're the expert at. And understand what the transferable skills are and say, well, I've never done that, but have you done something like that? Do
Yeah.
you have the capacity to do that thing? And if so, you need to explain what you did in detail so they can understand that you have the capacity to do that. So that's the best thing I can tell you to do is use the resume builder. And of course, take my class. I have 100 seats. It's Zoom.
Come on.
It's it's free of charge. I mean, no one's charging you anything.
You can't beat that price.
No, and that's one of the things I want to talk about too, is that there are people who believe if things are free, then they're subpar or not good enough. I have worked a long time to understand this whole process, um, go through coaching, training, and all these things because I just want to care for people and help them find their passion. I found mine. No, it doesn't pay me anything, but that's okay because God got me covered.
That's right.
But I want people to be happy like I am.
We reap what we sow.
Yeah, I'm happy when I have these conversations. When I talk to you, I will be happy to talk to you. I will give you all the information I have. I'm not asking you for a fee later. I, it's not subpar. I don't do things subpar. I'm not being funny or anything.
No, it's
But
under.
I'm all about excellence because I know who I owe everything to. And
Yeah.
it's a requirement. God requires that I'm excellent at what I do. And if I'm not, then I don't need to be on anyone's show. I need to be back there learning more. And
Yep.
so because of what I'm into, which is excellence, I have no problem sharing with you so that you can find the thing that you're excellent in and
Yeah.
benefit from that in your
I
whole
only
family.
I only bring in experts, just so you know. I have a lot of people
Oh,
who quote unquote volunteer to be on my show that will never be on my show because they're
oh.
not qualified. So
Well, I never thought of to be on anybody's show. I spoke 2 weeks ago. I spoke with a lady who was how should I? She is an agent. Let's just say it. She's an agent, and so our first conversation, and she was telling me what I needed to do, and I was like, okay, I got this. I understand what I need to do. But I told her I wasn't recording any of I mean, I've done hundreds of them now. I haven't recorded them because people are always sharing personal information, and I
right,
don't want that to
right,
be in there. Like I shared personal information today.
right.
Anyway, I just rather be in the back, show you what to do, and watch you succeed. I don't require anything that you tell me your details. If you want to share that you got the job, that makes me happy. That's what feeds my soul. But other than that, I love this.
Hope I have the same thought process on those emails. People ask me all the time, "Can I pay you? Can I donate?" It's like, no, I don't. I don't have any of that stuff, and I don't want it. All I really want to know is you found a job, and it's my favorite email or what we call direct message or DM on social media.
Mhm.
When I get that, I've had some of these people. There was somebody. In fact, I'm gonna see if I can find them. This guy is over in the UAE looking for work, and
Mhm.
I have known him now for 2 years. He's still looking for work,
Mhm.
and here he is right here, Anish. Okay, so Anish is trying to find a job. He's trying to relocate. He wants to get out of where he is, and he wants to go somewhere where it's economically better, right? So when he gets a job and he sends me that DM, I'm going to throw a party for this guy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And celebrate
I
with him
know.
because that is the reward in essence for the work. And people they don't understand that. Like, well, you got to
No.
eat. Like, yeah, well, I've
Well,
got
I
I've got income coming from another source, so I don't need.
well, I've earned $135. The $35 came from someone that I was just showing her. She already had the years of experience. She just never got in. She never got approved. She never got qualified. I showed her what to do. She did it. 2 months later, she went on an interview. 3 months later, she started with the Department of the Navy. Then the other lady, which was a friend of hers, I just showed her what to do. And she's in the process of updating everything. And she's like, "Oh, just please let me just give you something." So I said, "Okay, I'll take the $100.
Yeah.
Cash App." She gave me a Cash App.
I have one business. It's called Panna Knows, and she's a recruiting firm. She does talent acquisition and management, and now they actually just added staffing too. She sends me
No, Carmen, I don't have a twin,
no,
but I look like a lot of people. So apparently,
Nobody
I look like a lot of people.
Nobody asked me if I have a twin because God, he broke the mold when he made me. He's like, that's I don't.
Not me. Not me. I went on, not me at all. I went on vacation and the lady just kept staring at me and staring at me. And I was like, okay. And then her daughter walked up and she said, "Look at her. Look at her." And she looked at me. She said, "Oh my gosh, you look just like my aunt." And then she showed me a picture of her aunt. I look just like her aunt. I got to talk to the lady and everything. Her name was Precious.
I had a waitress like that one time. So like I'm the guy, it's kind of like the Cheers thing where you go in to the same place all the time and you meet people. And so I'm that guy. I like to go to those types of places and, eat at, at diners and things like that. So my wife and I were going to this place for years. We were really close to one of these waitresses. It's one of those, like, you ask for them and you'll wait to sit in their section even when there is no wait because, you want them to wait on you. So we went to another place and the lady who waited on us looked just like one of these other people. And I had that experience. I was like, it is uncanny how much you look like this other person.
Yeah. And
she probably thought I was total dweeb, but anyways.
Well, it happens all the time to me.
I couldn't get over it, but I don't have that experience. Like, no one said, "Oh, you know who you look like?" Like, no, I don't even get that. I don't even look like my own dad. You know what I mean? So anyways, Hope, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you for doing what you do day in and day out. I know it's a labor of love because I live a similar lifestyle, and the reward is not monetary. It is, I tell people it's emotional. For me, it's an emotional experience. Like I said, when I get that email that I found a job, I am like on cloud 9 with them, celebrating, fist bumps, high fives, all that stuff, all virtually, of course, because I don't know about you. I have never met in person any of the people that I help on Project Help You Grow for the most part. I've had some friends that I do help and they've gotten jobs and great. I was working with the prison ministry. It was actually, it was like a halfway. So they were out and then I would help them build their resume and land jobs. So I have, met all of them because a lot of them didn't have any access to computers or whatever. So, I helped them write the resumes. But for the most part, people that I help on Project Help You Grow, I've never met. So it is like Anish. I've never met Anish. You know what I mean? I've been working with him for years. And when he gets a job, like I said, I'm going to be super excited. But anyways, thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing. You're helping people. You're helping veterans. You're helping people who, they need it. And so it's awesome. I hope people will reach out to you. Now, I do something kind of strange on all my shows. I start and I stop with music. So I'm going to turn the music on and do a little bebop, and you're more than welcome to stay and shake your heads with me, or not, either way. But here we go. Thank you so much for being on the show, Hope.
I'm going over to Vets to Industry now.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab something to eat and then I'm going over there. Okay.